There is much about the modern world which can mystify and shock even the bravest among us. In our lives, we attempt to have control over our environments and personal outcomes. But there are many theories that suggest that the control we have in our lives is nothing but an illusion. A grand charade where our true fates have already been decided for us by a shadowy group known as the Illuminati. But just what does this group want with us? Perhaps today we can answer that question. Here are 10 shocking theories about the Illuminati. Number 10 is the end of religion. Even if you do not believe that the Illuminati is still in existence today, what is indisputable is that this group really did exist at one point in time. Once known as the Bavarian Illuminati, this secret society operated out of the south of Germany during the Enlightenment era. It was founded in 1776, and its goals were to counter superstition as well as spiritual and religious doctrines. Though this group was outlawed by the Bavarian leader Charles Theodore in the late 1700s, many believe that the Bavarian Illuminati simply went underground to survive. Today, even in the 21st century, there are whispers and rumors about the Illuminati, and that its alleged desire to wipe out religion is very much still alive. Some have suggested that the Bavarian Illuminati is controlling media as well as popular dialogue in an effort to destroy any spiritual group with influence once and for all. Number 9 is the disparity theory. The disparity theory is an idea that the Illuminati wants to maintain the divide between the super rich and everyone else by manipulating marketplaces so that people are kept poor. However, they can only do this if we are unwitting players in their game. Sophisticated financial systems have grown out of early banking technologies. It's been suggested that these systems allow us to believe that we are in control over our finances. When we use a banking app or look at our cryptocurrency wallets, we have the illusion that our finances are at our fingertips, working for us. But if some theories about the Illuminati are to be believed, this is only what they want us to think. The truth is that they hold all the cards, they control stock prices, and decide which economies grow and crash. And they do this to ensure that they always remain prosperous, while others do not. Number 8 is suppressing technology. It's easy to discount theories about the Illuminati. After all, some of them seem preposterous at first glance. However, when legitimate people come forward with unnerving assertions that they have encountered the Illuminati and know exactly what they're doing, the possibility that there's something to these stories increases. Take for example Paul Hellyer, who was the Canadian Minister of Defense from 1963 until 67. He had access to the world's elite at a transformative time for humanity culturally. Not only did he later confirm that he had dealings with the Illuminati, but he claims that they already run the world. Hellyer states that they already have the technology to reverse climate change, but are suppressing the technology until they reach their obscure goals. Most unsettling of all, he believes that this technology is of extraterrestrial origin. Number 7 is the space delusion. Flat Earthers argue that all the space footage we have seen was faked to persuade the public that the Earth really is a round planet. Others suggest, however, that the Illuminati themselves are to blame for these alleged fake images. The theory goes that the world really is a round planet, but that we are unable to leave its confines for some reason. Various perspectives offer different explanations for this. Some believe that the Illuminati have had contact with alien species who have told us that we are not allowed to explore the space around us. Humanity would be destroyed if it broke this embargo, so instead of panicking the general population, those in charge of the Illuminati have put their resources into faking space footage to make us think that we have already explored the solar system. Number 6 is the Illuminati music industry. There are many songs that mark important milestones in all of our lives. They can pick us up when we're down and they can inspire us to do better. But what if I told you that much of the music was engineered to manipulate you? That's exactly what some researchers into the Illuminati believe. They suggest that the entire music industry was infiltrated during the 20th century as it was seen as a means to control people. Musicians and their music often explore new ideas and define new norms for us culturally. Everything from what we wear down to our language that we use. It's all heavily affected by pop culture. Stars such as Jay-Z, Madonna, Lady Gaga, and Kanye West have been accused of being stooges for the Illuminati, pushing the messages the secret society wants us to buy into. And what do? Lap it up like good little followers. Number 5 is the divide. Identity politics has become increasingly popular in recent years. Regardless of how you feel about this, there's no doubt that following political agendas based along group lines has had significant influence on our debates about free expression, privilege, and cancel culture. Some believe that the Illuminati has seeded these ideas in order to manipulate the divide felt between different human groups. Depending on which theorist you listen to, this is being done in one of two ways. The first theory is that the Illuminati wants us to be divided so that we cannot rise up against them. By fueling group divisions, this will weaken humanity's resolve. A counter theory to this is that the Illuminati wants to create a global, one-world government, and in order to do this, humanity needs to abandon its rich, diverse identity forever. Number 4 are controlled cataclysms. It's been suggested that the Illuminati possesses technology far in advance of what is currently available. In fact, what the Illuminati has developed behind closed doors makes the most sophisticated military equipment in the world look like something out of the Stone Age. Some of that technology can be used to create cataclysmic events, such as hurricanes and floods, but the darkest interpretation is that when a natural global cataclysm occurs, the Illuminati uses this technology so that just enough of humanity survives in order to fulfill its goals. For example, there's increasing evidence that there was a huge flood over 10,000 years ago, and some now believe the Illuminati were around even back then and could have prevented millions from dying. Instead, they stood back and allowed humanity to be pushed to the brink. The question is, will that happen again? Number 3 is the devil's trick. It's often been said that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was persuading the world that he doesn't exist. The same can be said about the Illuminati. Think about all the negative articles and posts that you see about such claims. They're all designed to belittle anyone who dares consider the possibility that the world's elites get together to shape humanity's future. In order to avoid scrutiny, it could be that the Illuminati made a joke of themselves. They seeded the belief that such an organization could never exist, and that those investigating the Illuminati are only chasing shadows. With the idea of the Illuminati widely discredited and people frightened to even entertain the possibility for fear of being labeled a nut, the Illuminati is able to operate without worrying about people taking them seriously as a threat. Number 2 is the New World Order is here. You can't visit any conspiracy theory forum or website without being bashed over the head with the idea of the NWO and that it's being prepared for us all. Those who believe in such an order argue that the Illuminati is orchestrating the world so that it can create a totally brand new form of government, one which they can use to effectively dominate humanity forever. Plenty of people believe in the New World Order, and they are forever fighting against it by speaking out. But one of the most shocking revelations of all is that the New World Order is already here. The Illuminati may have been pulling a fast one, making us worry about what's coming, when in reality, the terrifying changes are being made right here, right now. Perhaps they've already been made, and the way the world is today is exactly what the Illuminati always wanted. And number 1 is the nature of reality. Humanity has researched for the meaning of life for thousands of years. Many of us as individuals have also gone on spiritual quests to uncover what reality truly is. And yet the answer to this search still remains elusive. Some believe that the Illuminati already knows the truth, and that it's one that they are doing everything that they can to hide from all of us. The reason that they're hiding this important truth is that if it were ever widely believed by the public, there could be massive civil unrest on an unprecedented scale. People would lose a sense of meaning to their lives to such a degree that society would no longer function. Number 10 is the Satan Initiative. Conspiracy theorists often argue that governments are actually working together to create one global organization with ultimate control over humanity. This one world government has been linked to alleged power groups like the Illuminati and the Knights Templar. But others believe their ultimate purpose is a satanic one. By bringing the world under one earthly government and by using modern technologies to continually monitor the population, these groups may deliberately be preparing for the arrival of the Antichrist. One major argument for this conspiracy theory is that governments want to use technology based on simple barcode to identify every human being. Some have suggested that the mathematics used to create the technology revolve around a number associated with the devil himself, 666. Number 9 is population sedation. Another very common government conspiracy theory is that the government wants to control the population in one very specific way. It involves sedating the population so that it's docile. This is a tricky thing to achieve. Sedate your population too much and they no longer go to work and make money. Sedate the people too little and they rage against the machine and try to overthrow their masters. Some believe that one way the government has been able to strike this balance is by putting fluoride in our drinking water. That way they can make sure that most people are exposed to the sedation and they can ensure that there isn't too much in the system. And then there's the slow legalization of drugs that were once considered illegal. Any of these methods would mean that we are all unwitting slaves to our unseen masters. Number 8 are reptilian masters. Who controls the world? That's a question many conspiracy theorists ask themselves. There are various answers given, but one is linked to the Earth's deep history. It's been alleged that we are not the first technologically advanced civilization to develop on Earth, that there was an earlier species which for some reason remains out of sight. Those who have encountered these creatures insist that they are reptilian humanoids who have the technology to shapeshift and appear human. They use this power to infiltrate and control the governments of the world for their own shadowy ends. What those goals are exactly, no one knows. However, it's been speculated that they experienced a cataclysm in their history and are few in number, so they must control humanity discreetly rather than with brute force. Number 7 are deep fakes. The development of deepfake technology has been fascinating to watch. However, in the wrong hands, it can be devastating. Deepfake technologies involve using computer learning to alter videos, photos, and even voice recordings so that they are indistinguishable from the real thing. While this technology is new to the public, there are those who believe that governments have possessed these technologies for some time. The unsettling conclusion from this perspective is that the video, audio, and images from around the world have been doctored for decades. This means that our entire understanding of recent history could be wrong. Government organizations could have been creating believable fakes to persuade the world that some people are evil when they are not, and vice versa. Number 6 is climate weaponization. If controlling our images isn't frightening enough, how about the climate? One conspiracy theory suggests that governments are altering the climate around us for their own ends. For example, by making a region uninhabitable due to storm activity, this could destroy a region's industrial capabilities. Another example would be creating unprecedented snowfall in order to hurt an enemy state's economy. For conspiracy theorists, the US government themselves have been implicated in weather manipulation. Their technique involves rupturing an atmosphere with microwaves. By doing this at a chosen angle, the waves are then deflected back down into the atmosphere to create weather changes at a chosen target. This could mean that the next world war isn't fought using missiles, but rather huge, violent weather patterns instead. Number 5 is the facade. Fake it until you make it. We've heard that advice before. One conspiracy theory suggests that those in control have stumbled upon a shocking truth, that the world is doomed and cannot currently be saved. Whether this is due to climate change or an ever-expanding human population, this theory states that those in power are simply keeping up pretenses until either a solution is found or humanity meets its final fate. In the meantime, we are kept distracted with movies, TV shows, and living a 9-to-5 existence. All the while, the world's governments are desperately searching for a way to save us all, and so far, all that they've discovered is that the world will end sooner than later. Number 4 is elite ritual indoctrination. Several conspiracy theorists speculate that governments and their commitment to representing the general public are shallow deceptions. In reality, they are populated by people who are members of the same cult group. This group crosses all borders and affects government policy around the world. Meetings between elite bankers and politicians, such as the Bilderberg Group and the rituals seen at Bohemian Grove, are put forward as evidence for this cult's existence. Those seeking power and success are often indoctrinated into this cult, which means that they're there to serve the larger group rather than their country of birth or political party. Keeping this affiliation hidden, they then subtly manipulate policy decisions to ensure that the cult survives and prospers from one generation to the next, an ongoing cycle of evil. Number 3 is information control. How do you control the world? You can do it with money, you can do it with military might, you even can do it by creating false flag operations. Another way, however, is to blackmail those with influence. This government conspiracy theory suggests that elite influencers, artists, and politicians are kept in line through an elaborate process of blackmail and manipulation. There are a number of ways to do this, including deep fakes mentioned earlier. Perhaps the most effective way to covertly spy on people and to find their deepest, darkest secrets is this method. This information can be used by governments as leverage so that influencers promote certain ideas to the public. In turn, the public then adopts these ideas. It's sophisticated control, and all done through the public figures and artists that we trust the most. Number 2 is the vote illusion. Belief that votes determine outcomes is central to any democracy and its stability. However, one government conspiracy theory states that none of our votes count at all. This great vote illusion has been assembled through hundreds of years of careful manipulation. Each time a presidential candidate is put forward, they are in fact a stooge for elites who control the government in reality. Votes are counted, but it doesn't matter who wins, because all candidates are controlled by these shadowy groups. In the event that a wild card might make it through, the government then simply discounts the votes and creates the illusion of a win for their chosen candidate. If this turned out to be true, then democracy is simply another tool through which we are all controlled by those who wield power unscrupulously. And number 1 are sleeper agents among us. Human beings are social animals. We thrive on the connections we have with each other, whether they are at work, at home, or online. Each of us builds a circle of trust throughout our lives. But what if I told you that some of these people may not be what they seem? In one shocking conspiracy theory, governments have developed conditioning and brainwashing techniques not just to control, but consume. We all know about famous mind control experiments like MK Ultra, but some believe that normal people around us have been turned into elaborate sleeper agents. Our loved ones may have been conditioned from afar through new technology and subliminal messaging to believe certain things and act in a certain way. One day they may even be activated to carry out a terrible act.
Number 1 is the fascist conspiracy. In 1933, a group of wealthy businessmen tried to install a fascist dictatorship in the United States. What's most disturbing is that the men involved were heads of organizations and families that still exist today, including Chase Bank, GM, Goodyear, Standard Oil, the DuPont family, and even Senator Prescott Bush. Yeah, Prescott Bush, father of George H. Bush and grandfather of George W. Bush. Well, it's a good thing that they didn't succeed and that the corruption of oil companies, banks, and the Bush family ended there. Yeah, that's sarcasm. Number 2 is the Guy Fawkes conspiracy. You've probably seen the Guy Fawkes mask from V for Vendetta. Same guy. In 1604, a group of Britons, including Guy Fawkes, were tired of King James' rule and conspired to blow up Parliament. They filled a room below Parliament with explosives, and they probably would have gotten away with it had one member of the conspiracy group not sent a letter to a politician talking about hypothetically blowing up Parliament. That conspirator wasn't seriously dumb enough to think that nothing would happen over sending a letter like that, was he? That's like me saying hypothetically I just pissed in your Cheerios. You gonna have a big old bite? Exactly. Number 3 is the MK Ultra conspiracy. In the 1950s and 70s, the CIA attempted a series of experiments involving mind control called Project MK Ultra. In an attempt to try to figure out how to control the minds of communist spies, they began probing and injecting psychedelic drugs into unwitting citizens of the United States. This resulted in people becoming sick, slipping into permanent comas, and even deaths. Luckily, as far as anybody knows, they did not succeed. Or at least that's what I'm supposed to say. Number 4 is the Tuskegee syphilis conspiracy. Between 1932 and 1972, the United States government conducted an experiment called the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. They experimented using spinal taps exclusively on very poor and mostly illiterate African American males without their consent. This went on for 40 years before somebody finally blew the whistle on it, which resulted in the National Research Act, which prevents barbaric experiments like this from being performed. Of course, instead of getting rid of these mad scientists, they kept them around and put them to work as health advisors to the president. Shout out to Obamacare. Number 5 is the 1919 World Series conspiracy. In 1919, 8 players from the Chicago White Sox threw a World Series game against the Cincinnati Reds in the most famous scandal in baseball history. Interestingly, they were never charged with anything since throwing a game is technically not a crime, but they were banned from the league a year later when it was discovered. This is only the most famous example though. There have been literally thousands of cases of players that have conspired to throw games. This is the type of thing that you better make sure you're getting paid really well for, or at least enough to cover your medical bills when the bookies come looking for you to cover the bets they had to pay out. Number 6 is the Snow White conspiracy. In the 1970s, the Church of Scientology perpetrated the largest infiltration of the US government in history called Operation Snow White. Their goal was to destroy every document that made them look bad, and ultimately over 5,000 Scientologists were successful in wiretapping and burglarizing 136 organizations, agencies, and foreign embassies. Damn, Scientology, you scary. First you infiltrate government, then Hollywood? What's next? Fast food joints? Don't you be putting no placentas in my chicken nuggets, man. Damn. Number 7 is the Illuminati conspiracy. One of the most famous conspiracies talked about today in popular culture are the Illuminati. Although thought to be a myth by some, the Order of the Illuminati were a very powerful organization that did in fact once exist. Founded in 1776, the official story is that they've either been disbanded or destroyed, but some people believe they still exist today. And not only that, but some people believe that they control half of the world's wealth through the Rothschild dynasty, and that they are the ones behind many major world events. But I really doubt this. I mean, if they really were everywhere, I think we would notice. Crap. Number 8 is the CIA drug running conspiracy. In the 1980s, the CIA directly aided Nicaraguan drug traffickers who were selling cocaine in Los Angeles and used the money to fund Nicaraguan Contras. Known as the Dark Alliance, this wasn't discovered until about a decade later in 1996. Damn, a whole decade? The CIA must be pretty good at keeping people quiet. Speaking of the CIA, I just got some inside information about how they are doing things that nobody knows. And that is happening right now. Spread the word. Number 9 is the Operation Valkyrie conspiracy. Near the end of World War II, when it became clear that Nazi Germany was in a losing fight, a group of Nazi traitors conspired to assassinate Hitler. Unfortunately, one conspirator decided that he would do it himself and exploded a bomb in Hitler's conference room, except surprisingly, Hitler survived with only minor injuries. Because of this, Operation Valkyrie never went into effect and all the conspirators were killed. I mean, luckily Nazi Germany still lost the war, but damn people, if you have a plan that's that big, make sure you work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. And finally, number 10, the Bohemian Grove conspiracy. For years, conspiracy theorists have said that the world's richest and most powerful men have met once a year in the woods to worship a giant owl. And as it turns out, it's true. Located in California, there's an exclusive men's-only club called the Bohemian Club, which hosts a yearly gathering of the most powerful men in the world. It's incredibly secretive and nobody really knows what goes on during the 2 to 3 week gathering. Did I mention that they have rituals that take place in front of a shrine of a giant owl? Like, I get that the owl represents wisdom and knowledge, but couldn't they have chosen a more manly mascot for an all-men's club, like, I don't know, an old-time boxer or Chuck Norris or a giant mustache? Just saying.
Number 10 is the new chronology. We all learn about history in school. Some of us pursue that interest at college, university, or through personal study. Regardless, there's an accepted view as to the chronology of events. Academics teach us that recorded human history, the length of time we've been writing down what's happening around us, goes back about 5,000 years. But a Russian mathematician by the name of Fomenko argues that this is wrong, and that recorded history is only around 1,000 years old. He claims to have done calculations on historical data showing that historical records have been forged, misinterpreted, and promoted to keep what's really happening in humanity's recent past secret. This new chronology has a number of high-profile supporters. If this is true, no one is quite sure what this 1,000-year-old lie is actually hiding from all of us. Number 9 is Harold Wilson. Harold Wilson was a world-famous politician from the UK. He was known for his phenomenal debating abilities, which led to the most powerful political office in Britain. He became Prime Minister twice, from 1964 to 1970, and then again from 1974 to 1976, winning 4 general elections. Now, all of this may sound run-of-the-mill, but things take a turn into the strange when you learn that Harold Wilson was suspected by some of being a spy for Soviet Russia. The idea that the most powerful person in the United Kingdom at the height of the Cold War was spying for the enemy seems better suited for a James Bond novel than reality. However, while Prime Minister, the BBC uncovered an alleged plot to remove Harold Wilson from office by the UK's MI5 agents. The reason? Many believe there was real evidence that the Prime Minister himself was a Soviet agent. Number 8 are immortal actors. Some actors appear to defy age with their youthful looks well into their advanced years. However, some believe this is because those actors are not what they seem. Several conspiracy theories argue that some of the most iconic actors of all time are part of a secret society that has unlocked the secret to everlasting life. Conspiracy theorists offer some key visual evidence to support their claims. For example, photographs and paintings from the last few centuries allegedly show that some actors are hundreds of years old. A painting from 1875 appears to show a man who very much looks like Keanu Reeves, while a photograph from 1870 appears to show none other than Nicolas Cage, very much alive and well over 100 years ago. If such a society does exist, you wonder just what price it is to join. Number 7 is Down the Rabbit Hole. British author Lewis Carroll wrote a book called The Nursery Alice. This was a version of his own book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but simplified for children. It was published in 1889, but in a grisly turn of events, the same kid's book had been implicated in one of the world's most famous murder cases. For well over a century, people have tried to find out the identity of Jack the Ripper, but one conspiracy theory states that Lewis Carroll left clues in his books as to who the killer really was. And how would he know? Because he allegedly is Jack the Ripper himself. This theory was first proposed by writer Richard Wallace in 1996, and since then has gained supporters. Several clues can be found in the books, and it's led many to wonder whether one of the greatest children's writers of all time was also one of the world's most infamous killers. Number 6 is Kubrick and the Illuminati. Stanley Kubrick was one of the greatest directors who ever lived, but he also was a subject of several conspiracy theories. One of the more popular ones is that he was involved in faking moon landing footage. However, there is also an even darker theory which states that the films he made resulted in his own death. Throughout Kubrick's career, he believed strongly in the use of subliminal messages throughout his films. This is why his films have been studied so widely for their secret meanings. A lesser-known conspiracy theory states that Stanley Kubrick was an inside member of the Illuminati, the mythical group which supposedly controls the Earth. In this theory, he left clues about the organization in his films, but when he finally made a movie about secret societies called Eyes Wide Shut, the Illuminati had him assassinated. Number 5 is the A440 conspiracy. Another little-known conspiracy is that of A440. A440 is a musical note, the first A note after middle C to be precise. This note vibrates at exactly 440 Hz, hence its name. It's been used since the mid-20th century and has become a tuning standard for most instruments. However, there are several conspiracy theories attached to it. One states that the A440 note actually causes stress, aggression, and antisocial behavior in humans. Some believe that it was developed by the Nazis during the Second World War and has since been used to manipulate the human mind. The way that it allegedly works is that the note vibrates at a frequency that interferes with the very fabric of our universe, causing disharmony in living matter. Some believe that it's only a matter of time before this malevolent musical note is used to undo modern civilization with a deafening crescendo. Number 4 is the 9/11 stock market conspiracy. Most 9/11 conspiracy theories are pretty disrespectful to those who lost their lives that day, not to mention those who tried to defend us. However, there's one little-known conspiracy theory which does raise some questions. This theory speculates that there was some unusual activity in the financial markets in the days leading up to September 11th. Some of this activity revolved around airline shares. Conspiracy theorists suggest that unknown investors were aware of what was about to happen on that day and sold their shares before the attacks occurred. Furthermore, shares in insurance companies were also heavily traded on that day. While this trading hasn't resulted in any official accusations, it was investigated, leading some conspiracy theories to insist that someone out there made a lot of money from that day. Number 3 is the left hand. It used to be thought that left-handedness was a mark of the devil. People who were left-handed were forced to use their right hand for most tasks, and in some instances, the left hand was tied awkwardly behind the back. While this is superstition at its worst, there's a little-known conspiracy theory that there's more to some left-handed individuals than meets the eye. This theory argues that there is an advantage to being left-handed, and that a powerful secret society only allows members who have this hand dominance. This may seem like an unusual proposition, but when you consider that 5 of the last 8 presidents were left-handed or ambidextrous, and that an unusually high number of people in power are the same, it does make you wonder if this alleged society really does exist and is controlling our fate from the shadows. Number 2 is Finland's origin. A recent conspiracy theory which gained traction on Reddit is one of many alternative history perspectives. This theory suggests that the country of Finland doesn't actually exist, at least not as we know it. The argument is that the landmass known as Finland in Europe, which borders Russia and the Baltic Sea, was fabricated as recently as 100 years ago. This was supposedly pulled off by Russian and Japanese diplomats so that they could manipulate fishing rights in the Baltic Sea. The people who currently live in modern-day Finland are the descendants of people from surrounding areas who were shipped there and sold an elaborate hoax about Finland having existed for many years. Now, some argue that this is a hoax, while others believe that it is suggestive of alternative history and that our belief in the modern world has been widely fabricated. And number 1 is the portal to hell. Scientific advances have altered our lives for the better, but there are those who insist that one high-profile scientific experiment is in fact a worldwide satanic conspiracy. In this conspiracy theory, the scientific community has been infiltrated at all levels by Satan worshippers, who have manipulated scientific data and funding in order to meet their ultimate goal, to bring about the coming of the Antichrist. The experiment in question is the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. This vast underground particle accelerator is used to smash particles together to see what they're comprised of. However, some believe that as either the current or future colliders become more powerful, they will eventually tear a hole in the fabric of space. Then, whatever demonic forces lie in wait in darkness can finally come forth and claim our world as their own.
Number 1 is the Operation Northwoods conspiracy. Many people are distrusting of their government, believing that they sometimes carry out secret operations under the guise of being the target of an attack, when in reality they're the ones that are deceiving the masses to further their own ulterior motives. Known as false flag operations, in 1962, one was proven to be true. Operation Northwoods was a proposition by the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Department of Defense that outlined a plan to incite war between the U.S. and Cuba. The operation called for the CIA themselves to perform acts of terrorism against their own American citizens, blaming Cuba and its communist leader Fidel Castro. Suggested methods of terrorism included shootings in major cities, hijacking planes, blowing up American ships near Guantanamo Bay, and sinking refugee boats leaving Cuba. This disturbing plan was presented to President John F. Kennedy, who outright rejected it, and even removed the chair of the Joint Chiefs from his position. However, some have taken it even further, believing that Kennedy's unwillingness to carry out such operations was one of the reasons behind his assassination. Number 2 is the Operation Paperclip conspiracy. After World War II, there were whispers that the government was looking the other way and hiring Nazis to work within the ranks of their own government. And while many brushed this off as crazy, as it turns out, it wasn't. In 1945, the United States Office of Strategic Services and the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, or JIOA, began recruiting captured German scientists, engineers, and technicians. Codenamed Operation Paperclip, it succeeded in hiring upwards of 1,500 Germans, the goal of which was to prevent the Soviet Union and the UK from gaining their expertise, as well as to hinder Germany's military research progress. Now, publicly, President Harry Truman approved the program so long as no former Nazis were recruited. However, those restrictions proved to have rendered ineligible most of the leading scientists from whom the JIOA had identified for recruitment. So, their solution? Create false identities for these ex-Nazis and recruit them into the ranks of their own government. Number 3 is the Gulf of Tonkin conspiracy. As many as 42 false flag operations have been admitted by governmental organizations up to this day, and the Gulf of Tonkin incident is yet another example. On August 2nd, 1964, a U.S. destroyer ship named the USS Maddox was reported to have been attacked by 3 North Vietnamese torpedo boats. The attack occurred off the coast of Vietnam in an area known as the Gulf of Tonkin. The USS Maddox engaged in battle and defeated the torpedo boats, killing 4 and injuring 6 Vietnamese crew members. Further escalating things, just 2 days later, a second attack occurred in the same area. These events became the precursor to the Vietnam War. except that neither of them ever really happened. Years later, declassified reports were released that not only did American ships fire at absolutely nothing, but the second battle with the Vietnamese was reported with the sole purpose to escalate tensions. It was discovered that the government staged the entire event as an excuse to enter Vietnam and kill as many communists as possible. This false flag operation may have claimed as many as 211,000 Americans' lives within the Vietnam War. Number 4 is the COINTELPRO conspiracy. COINTELPRO, which stands for Counterintelligence Program, was a secret espionage operation by the FBI that investigated any groups or persons who threatened the authority of the US government. The program started in August of 1956 and focused on groups like the Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam War protesters, the Black Power movement, and feminists. Targeted group members would receive anonymous phone calls or documents with incriminating information on their peers. Some would even be wiretapped and some were audited. Even powerful targets were affected, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. But what's most scary about this program is that it would have continued indefinitely, except that in 1971, documents exposing it were stolen and given to the media, after which it scaled back its operations. However, notice that I said scaled back, not ended. There are rumors that versions of this program continue today under the guise of anti-terrorism measures. Imagine how much easier it is for the government to do this now with everyone openly transmitting information via cell phone. Number 5 is the Operation Mockingbird conspiracy. Many Americans believe that the media continues to be heavily influenced to present the views of a small group of people, and they just might be right. Operation Mockingbird was a CIA effort to control major American media outlets between the 1950s and 1970s. The program was started by Frank Wisner, director of plans for the CIA, and in 1947, he began recruiting leading American journalists into a propaganda network to help present the CIA's views to the masses. Head journalists at the New York Times, CBS, and Newsweek were recruited through both bribes and being put on the payroll. By 1953, Mockingbird had journalists at 25 different news agencies and was finally taken over by CIA Director Alan Dulles. While it was active, Mockingbird managed to ruin the careers of the CIA's political opponents, spy on other journalists, censor damaging reports, and promote the fight against communism. It was officially ended in 1976, but many of the CIA's news media relationships have remained intact even to this day. Number 6 is the Watergate conspiracy. The Watergate scandal is the name of the infamous political conspiracy that was uncovered in 1973 and even forced President Nixon to resign. On June 17, 1972, a security guard caught 5 burglars at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C., where the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee were located. Unbeknownst to the public, the burglars were actually sent by Nixon's administration to repair some wiretap devices that they had planted in an earlier break-in. After the release of multiple tapes incriminating Nixon, he was forced to hand over office and nearly got him impeached before he decided to quit himself. Ultimately, he was pardoned by President Gerald Ford in September of 1974, but 48 of his top employees weren't so lucky and received jail time for their involvement. Number 7 is the North Korea kidnapping conspiracy. Many citizens of various nations around the world are skeptical of their governments, and North Korea is certainly no exception. Between 1977 and 1983, Japanese citizens began mysteriously disappearing from the Japanese west coast around the city of Niigata. Although there were whispers that the North Korean government was involved, they adamantly denied any involvement. However, it was later discovered that the North Korean government actually kidnapped and imprisoned as many as 13 Japanese citizens. However, Japan claims that the number is actually 17, but according to records of Japanese disappearances in towns near the coast, the number could very well be in the hundreds. And unbelievably, this theory was actually confirmed by former North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-il in 2002. The official reasons behind the random abductions are still unknown to this day, but some theorists believe that they were used to give identities to Korean spies or to teach them Japanese. Number 8 is the Nayara testimony conspiracy. On October 10, 1990, Nayara El Sabah, a 15-year-old girl, gave a touching testimony
testimony to the Congressional Human Rights Caucus in which she emotionally described atrocities that were committed by Iraqi soldiers. She testified to a story of soldiers committing horrendous acts to young citizens in the Al Adan hospital where she volunteered. This story not only helped sway public opinion towards favoring helping Kuwait in the Gulf War, but it was used by the United States senators as well as President H.W. Bush as support for their involvement in the war. Originally, she had only given her first name in her testimony. However, in 1992, her last name was released and she was exposed as the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the US. Her testimony was ultimately exposed as a lie conceived by the Citizens for a Free Kuwait and produced by the American Public Relations Agency Hill and Knowlton. Number 9 is the Prohibition Conspiracy. The American prohibition on alcoholic beverages, which lasted from 1920 to 1933, held some dark secrets involving the US government and the poisoning of booze supplies. After Prohibition began, people took to redistilling industrial-grade alcohol to make it drinkable. To combat this, the government began adding several poisonous chemicals to alcohol to prevent them from drinking it. And boy, did it work. In fact, it worked so well that it may have led to upwards of 10,000 poisoning deaths of illegal alcohol-consuming Americans. The government had completely failed in their effort to discourage drinkers and instead wound up killing thousands of their own people. This shocking revelation was discovered by Professor Deborah Plum in her research for a book about poison and was released immediately to the media. And number 10 is the Big Brother conspiracy. Being watched by the government is no longer just a theory. It has been openly revealed that government institutions around the world have been utilizing top secret programs as well as software to monitor and access your private data. Programs have been discovered like PRISM, which allow the US National Security Agency, or NSA, to collect your data from internet companies such as Google, Facebook, and Apple without your consent. But one scary piece of software called X-Keyscore collects private data on a global scale every single day and is shared amongst other countries such as Canada, Australia, Britain, New Zealand, and Germany. And it wasn't even until recently in 2013 that the existence of these civilian surveillance programs was leaked through documents downloaded by Edward Snowden, a former CIA and NSA employee. Literally every single thing you do on your home computer or mobile phone can and is being documented by the government, and private browsers do not help. Number 1 is Louis Le Prince. Louis Le Prince is known today as the father of cinematography for shooting the first moving pictures on paper film using a single lens camera. Unfortunately, that achievement is not what he's most famous for. On September 16th of 1890, Le Prince was on a train bound for the UK where he was patenting his new camera when he inexplicably vanished. Not a single trace of him was found on the train, though passengers claimed seeing him there. His luggage and belongings vanished with him, and none of the train doors were open to suggest that he jumped. Multiple theories have been presented to make sense of Le Prince's disappearance, including an assassination plot made by Thomas Edison. Well, I mean, David Copperfield once made a whole train vanish, so, back in the day, maybe they just started a little smaller, with people. Number 2 is the Springfield 3. On June 2nd, 1992, Cheryl Levitt, her daughter, and a family friend all vanished from Levitt's Missouri home. Two younger women, Susie Streeter and Stacy McCall, attended a graduation party and headed back around 2:15 a.m. This was the last time any of the three were seen. Police were alerted to the missing women by a family friend, but were baffled when they found their clothes, purses, and keys all in the house and Levitt's car still in the driveway. In fact, the only odd thing about the scene was a smashed light bulb on the front porch. What makes this story even more bizarre is that a man named Robert Craig Cox came forward claiming to know that all three women were in fact murdered and that their bodies would never be found. But because of the lack of evidence, they couldn't charge him. This is alarmingly similar to the plot of the movie Fracture, except this guy isn't nearly as creepy as Anthony Hopkins. Nobody's as creepy as Anthony Hopkins.
Number 3 is Jimmy Hoffa. On July 30th, 1975, 62-year-old union activist and convicted criminal Jimmy Hoffa disappeared from a restaurant parking lot in Oakland County, Michigan. He'd gone to the restaurant to meet with 2 mafia leaders, leading many to believe that he'd been murdered by the mob. This mystery got widespread media attention due to Hoffa's former role as the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, a well-known labor union. Rumors about where Hoffa ended up are still coming in to this day and include being burned and buried in oil drums, put through a wood chipper, and even being buried under the New York Giants end zone. So if a player ever trips over a rock during a game, that's not a rock. It's a skull! Number 4 is Rebecca Corium. On March 21st, 2011, Rebecca Corium, a 24-year-old youth worker aboard the Disney Wonder cruise ship, disappeared from the vessel while it traveled through the Pacific Ocean. Nobody knows exactly what happened, but security footage shows Rebecca in a very heated phone conversation, which was the very last time she was ever seen. Rebecca's parents and some of her co-workers claim that Disney and the Royal Bahamas Police know more than they're saying, but no further evidence was ever found. But the plot thickens. Somehow, well after vanishing from the ship, Rebecca's credit cards were used, and according to her uncle, the password to her Facebook profile was changed. So the question is this the work of an imposter or hacker, or is Rebecca's ghost just getting really good Wi-Fi from Davy Jones' locker? Yar! She's the newest Disney pirate of the Caribbean, matey. Sorry, no disrespect. She did. Number 5 is Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur on March 8, 2014 at 12:41 a.m. local time and lost contact with air traffic control less than an hour in what is largely considered one of the biggest aviation mysteries in all of history. According to reports, the plane drastically changed its flight path and vanished from radar. None of the 239 passengers and crew have ever been found. At the time, the incident gained the record as both the deadliest aviation incident to occur in Malaysian Airlines history and the deadliest involving a 777. Unbelievably, these records were both broken only 131 days later with the crashing of Flight 17. Hi there, need a cheap flight but don't want the hassle of actually making it safely to your destination? Well, the Malaysian Airlines has arrived for you! Number 6 is Frederick Valentik. On October 21st, 1978, Australian pilot Frederick Valentik was flying over Australia's Bass Strait when he radioed in that an unidentified flying object was following him. According to the transcript, the UFO was tracking him, stopped in midair, and then vanished. His final transmission was, "It's hovering and it's not an aircraft," followed by white noise. No trace of Valentik or his plane was ever discovered. Okay, see, this one makes me kind of uncomfortable. Not just because this is one more piece of evidence to support the existence of aliens, which totally freaks me out, but because if they did in fact get him, his butt likely became an alien pincushion. Ouch. Number 7 is Bila Kiss. In July 1916, Hungarian police raided the home of Bila Kiss where he was serving in World War I. To their horror, the team found the bodies of 24 women, all with puncture wounds on their necks and their blood completely drained, which led many to believe that Kiss was a vampire. But it gets weirder because on October 4th, investigators tracked the killer to a Serbian hospital only to find upon their arrival that he had vanished and a dead soldier was in his bed where he had recently been. But the story gets weirder because just 4 years later, in 1920, a man matching Kiss's description and using one of the man's aliases appeared, serving in a French Foreign Legion, but again, suddenly disappeared just before police arrived. Finally, in 1932, the same man once again surfaced, this time in New York City. Now, many people reported him working as a janitor, but when officers went there to question him, the vampire vanished for the final time. Nobody knows what happened to him or how he managed to evade capture so many times. Which is especially odd to me. I mean, it's gotta be hard walking around undetected when you sparkle in the sunlight. Look like a freak show walking around. Number 8 is the Royal Norfolk Regiment. War is definitely scary, but a battalion of British World War I soldiers had to fear not only their enemies, but paranormal forces as well. In 1915, 3 officers watched as a regiment of 250 men marched up a hill in Suvia Bay, Turkey, and into a dense fog that had settled on the ground. But after the last man entered, the mist lifted to reveal that, shockingly, every last soldier had vanished. Since no bodies were ever found, when the war ended, the British government demanded the return of their men, only to have the Turkey deny that they'd ever encountered the British regiment at all. That's some creepy shit. Number 9 is MV Joyita. Easily one of the most unsettling maritime mysteries of all time, the MV Joyita, a merchant vessel, left port in Samoa on October 3rd, 1955, with 25 people aboard, and was found 5 weeks later on November 10th, half submerged and completely abandoned. The radio on board was set to the International Distress Channel, one of the engines was completely covered in mattresses of all things, and all of the lifeboats were missing. To make matters even more creepy, investigators found that all of the clocks had mysteriously frozen to read 10:25, and a doctor's bag was discovered full of bloody bandages. What happened aboard the MV Joyita and her crew's whereabouts are unknown to this day, although many have theorized that pirates, lunacy, or even aliens could be to blame. My money's on the pirate alien lunatics. Arrgh. I don't know what that was. And number 10, the colony of Roanoke. On August 18, 1590, John White landed on Roanoke Island, returning from England with supplies for a colony he'd helped establish just 3 years prior. However, instead of the village of 117 settlers that he'd left behind, White found the entire area completely devoid of human life. On top of that, every makeshift building had been taken down by hand, and the only signs left for him were the word Croatoan carved on a wooden post and the word crow carved into a nearby tree. To this very day, nobody can say what happened to the colonists, but the story has been portrayed in many books, films, television shows, and most often in the horror genre. Well, according to this document that I have in my hand that is totally factual and in no way completely off the top of my head, Croatoan is a First Nation word that means, "Oh mama, there's a monster on the island, mama no!" That's the translation.
Number 10 is Naquam Sonatus. Back in 2013, a man got something quite strange in the mail and decided to post the content immediately on Reddit. What he got was a CD with a playlist and a police report. When he played the CD, he realized that one of the audio files contained hidden GPS coordinates, which led to an abandoned factory in Tampa, Florida. When Redditors started commenting about what they knew of this property and speculating why it could possibly be significant, a mysterious and creepy user account started responding to these comments. People lost their minds over the whole thing and were determined to figure out who was behind it and why. Eventually, they determined that it was all viral marketing for the band Naquam Sonatus from Florida, a group of performance noise artists whose members remain unknown. Number 9 is Ring Thing. Pretty much any young person with an imagination for adventure dreams of exploring and finding lost or buried treasures, but in the case of one Reddit user, that thrilling dream became a reality. As a youth in the mid to late 1990s, they came across a golden ring in a grocery store parking lot. The piece of jewelry was engraved with AB&P 14K and FLP RMC 91917, all along the inside of the ring. After keeping the ring for about 20 years, they took to Reddit in hopes that they could get help finally locating the ring's rightful owner. Soon after posting, another user uncovered a marriage certificate, matching the engraving and the date on the ring. Further research revealed the initials stood for Frank Philip Liston and Ruby Marie Crisp, who are both sadly deceased. Number 8 is Frame 394. A 28-year-old cinematographer from Toronto, Ontario named Daniel Voschmart managed to entangle himself in one of America's most high-profile police-involved mysteries. It all started in April of 2015 when the Redditor first saw shaky cell phone video footage of an unarmed man, Walter Scott, falling to the ground after being taken down by Officer Michael Slager, who moments later apparently planted and then retrieved what looked like a taser next to Scott's body. After weeks of watching this clip, he noticed something in the 394th frame that had him reaching out to the FBI and ballistics experts. It was evidence that could have potentially saved Slager from facing a life sentence. Voschart refused a retainment offer from the ex-officer's lawyer, and the case eventually concluded without using Voschart as an expert witness. Number 7 is an earworm. Have you ever heard a song you liked so much you quickly pull out your phone to figure out what it is? Well, what if that song is so obscure that even the internet doesn't know? This was the case with a new wave song from the 80s that no one could identify. Dubbed "Stay" by fans, the song had been ruminating on message boards and Reddit, but stumped everyone for years. The song's origin was muddied and lost in time. All that was known was that it was recorded at a German radio station between 1984 and 1986. Finally, a Redditor named Stefan, who worked for a Swedish radio show, recognized the song, revealing that it was by an artist named Johan Lindell. The show interviewed Lindell, discovering that "Stay" was really called "Up on the Roof" and was from his 1985 album Ghost Rider. Number 6 is A858. In 2011, a previously unused Reddit account began posting seemingly random strings of numbers and text in a new subreddit that it created. To the casual eye, there wasn't much to see as it shared the same unreadable set of numbers and letters as its moderator. But soon enough, Redditors saw those strings of characters and decided that it was a code, and a dedicated group of users began trying to crack it. The creator of A858 was aware of the growing attention and began dropping hints, jokes, and words of encouragement. One post even featured an encrypted image of Stonehenge, referencing a comment that had called the puzzle the Stonehenge of Reddit. Some believe A858 to be a piece of art using the digital world as its canvas. Though the codes have been solved, the reason for them still remains unknown. Number 5 is alien abduction. In 2013, Reddit user TramStopDan began to document his experience digging through a box he found in the trash. Inside, he found beautifully hand-rendered illustrations of heavenly four-headed creatures, along with technical drawings of UFOs, personal belongings, and a handwritten note about what was either an extraterrestrial invasion or some kind of government cover-up. There were even some non-patented drawings of train wheels and hand-drawn maps from the late 1930s. In 2014, another Redditor tracked down 85-year-old Elmer Arbov, who was the nephew of Daniel Christensen, the guy behind the box. Arbov said that his uncle was obsessed with the Book of Ezekiel and felt a tremendous need to create based on his thoughts about it. Many agree that Christensen probably suffered from schizophrenia. Number 4 is an extension cord enigma. We all need our privacy, somewhere that we are free from the gaze of others in order to relax and feel at ease. But in April of 2013, one user realized his privacy had been destroyed after an extension cord in his own dorm room suddenly blew up. Upon taking it apart, he found that inside was a strange series of small wires and a SIM card. He posted pictures of it to a subreddit where one commenter provided a link to a device sold on Amazon that looked like what he had found. It turned out to be a surveillance device, which allowed someone to secretly listen to any noise in the room. He contacted the bug's manufacturer, asking for more information, but they told him that they'd need a warrant. While we now know what the device was, we still don't know what it was doing there. Very creepy. Number 3 is Meathead asking for help. In 2013, Reddit user Meathead posted an image of a broken headlight that came off a car that had been involved in a hit and run. He asked for any help that might lead to the possibility of identifying the driver. It didn't seem like much to go on, seeing as that it was just a piece of a headlight, but 400 Reddit comments poured in, and eventually, one Reddit user left the following comment. "That was a tough one. It took me a minute to figure it out. That light came off a 1990 Cadillac Broom." That comment received hundreds of upvotes almost instantly, so Meathead took his new information to the police, and they were able to match it to a stolen vehicle. Thanks to this lead, they not only recovered the stolen vehicle, but were able to identify the thief, who had also committed the hit and run and pressed charges. Number 2 is Cicada 3301 Puzzle. Between 2012 and 2014, a cryptic message began appearing once a year on message boards across the internet. Claiming to seek highly intelligent individuals, the Cicada 3301 puzzle challenged visitors to find a secret message hidden in an image that accompanied it. Joel Eriksson, a 34-year-old crypto security researcher and Redditor from Sweden, was one of the few people who actually solved it since the first challenge appeared online. To this day, nobody has publicly taken credit for these puzzles, but Cicada must be the work of more than one person, with some hefty resources at that. So far, physical artifacts from the group have appeared in 8 nations and 11 US states. It has bought phone numbers, paid for server uptime, and offered something to the winners which has earned their silence. And number 1 are carbon copies. In 2016, Reddit user Bradbury1920 described finding mysterious post-it notes around their home with handwriting on them that they didn't recognize. The user had even set up a webcam to solve the mystery, but discovered that the footage had been deleted and the computer's trash emptied. They found no other signs of a break-in, but they were obviously disturbed and asked Reddit for help. A fellow Redditor commented that it was possible that it was Bradbury1920 who was writing the notes and forgetting about them, stating that headaches and memory loss were possible signs of exposure to carbon monoxide. After reading this, Bradbury1920 put up a carbon monoxide detector and discovered dangerous amounts of it in their home. Number 10 is Susan Walsh. The disappearance of Susan Walsh is a puzzle. The last time that she was seen was outside of her home in New Jersey in July of 1996. No one knows what happened to her, but what makes the disappearance so strange is that Susan was an investigative reporter and had been investigating an underground vampire roleplay community at the time. She had also previously written a story about the Russian mafia trafficking individuals. Some believe either the Russian mafia or someone from the vampire community in New York City was trying to silence her. Just 2 days before her disappearance, Susan told a colleague that she had a stalker. It was later revealed that inside her apartment, the July page from the calendar had been torn out. No one knows what was written on that page and whether it pointed towards her eventual fate. Number 9 is Heather Teague. Heather Teague disappeared on August 26, 1995. Whatever happened to her, Heather's suspected final moments are chilling. A witness claimed to be using a telescope and happened to see Heather sunbathing in her swimsuit on the shore of Newburgh Beach in Henderson County, Kentucky. Some have speculated that the witness was spying on her, but the witness told police that he watched in horror as a man came out of the woods, grabbed Heather at gunpoint, and dragged her back into the tree line. This was the last time anyone saw her. Since then, Heather's family has been searching for answers, but so far none have been forthcoming. A string of bizarre events did follow Heather's abduction, including a suspect committing suicide and discrepancies in police records surrounding the case, which to this day remains open. Number 8 is Juan Martinez. The disappearance of Juan Pedro Martinez in 1986 is one of the most perplexing missing persons cases of all time. The disappearance occurred in Spain when Juan, a 10-year-old boy, traveled with his mother and father across the country. Juan's father was a truck driver and was transporting 20,000 liters of sulfuric acid at that time. As Juan's father's truck descended down a steep mountain road, his truck did not brake and reached 140 kilometers an hour. The truck was out of control, recklessly running other traffic off the road. Finally, the truck crashed. The passengers were killed either in the impact or by sulfuric acid which poured over them from the truck's trailer. What makes the disappearance so strange is that only 2 bodies were ever recovered, and a witness claimed to see a passenger stop at the crash and take Juan away. He was never seen again. Number 7 is Teresa Ann Bia. Teresa Ann Bia was 16 years old when she vanished. She was last seen on June 1st, 1987, heading off to a camping trip with her friend Russell Welsh, a 43-year-old man. Their goal was to investigate Bigfoot sightings and hopefully find evidence for the mythological creature. Despite a 16-year-old girl traveling with a 43-year-old man causing concern, the two still headed into the Nevada mountain range. When Russell Welsh appeared several days later, he said Teresa had been taken by the Bigfoot creature. Welsh was charged with child stealing, but the charges were eventually dropped. Police offered Welsh a deal that if he admitted to killing Teresa and told authorities where he hid the body, they would give him a light sentence. However, Welsh maintained that Bigfoot took her, and poor Teresa was never found. Number 6 is Loria Bible and Ashley Freeman. Loria Bible and Ashley Freeman both disappeared in Welsh, Oklahoma on December 30th, 1999. Ashley was celebrating her 16th birthday with her parents and her friend Loria. During the night, a fire broke out in Ashley's home. The fire department discovered Ashley's mother's body inside the home, but no one else. An autopsy revealed that Ashley's mother had been shot dead, and that the fire had been started deliberately. Bizarrely, the body of Ashley's father was overlooked by police and eventually found at the scene by Loria's parents. That's when things took an even darker turn, when it was revealed that Ashley's father had warned his brother that he was in a feud with the local sheriff's department over the wrongful shooting of his son, and that if anything ever happened to him, to blame them. To this day, Loria and Ashley are still missing. Number 5 is Bison Daly. Bison Daly played pro basketball for the Chicago Bulls as well as the LA Clippers. However, one day he simply mysteriously disappeared. After retiring, Daly took a boat in 2002 and sailed to Tahiti. This included his girlfriend and a skipper to sail the boat, along with Daly's brother Miles. However, ultimately only Miles ever came off that boat. He was arrested for murder, but at first claimed that Daly's girlfriend had been accidentally killed and that Daly had murdered the skipper to keep it quiet. He then turned on Miles, who killed Daly in self-defense. Others believe that Miles, who committed suicide before the case progressed, had murdered them all over money. Miles' lawyer later revealed that Miles had told him that Daly and his girlfriend were actually alive and that he'd helped them disappear. Unless Daly one day emerges at some point, we will never know the truth. Number 4 is Brandon Lawson. After leaving his San Angelo home on August 9th, 2013, Brandon Lawson disappeared. While investigators cannot be certain what happened to him, it seems clear that he encountered something horrific in the woods. His truck had broken down in the middle of the night, and so Brandon called his brother to ask him to come to pick him up. When his brother arrived, he found the truck on a woodland road, but no Brandon. The last anyone heard from Brandon was when he called 911 during the night, talking about running into something in the woods and needing help. That's when the call went silent, and in a garbled message it sounded as if Brandon had been caught by whoever or whatever was chasing him. His body was never recovered. Number 3 is Michael Donaghy. Michael Wayne Donaghy went missing on March 24, 1991. He was only 4 years old at the time, and his disappearance puzzled investigators because of how many people were around him when he vanished. Michael was seen at 12:30 p.m. having fun and playing in a school playground in Victoria, British Columbia. Michael's father was nearby as they were both there to watch Michael's mother at a football practice. Suddenly, Michael was gone and no one knew where he went. It's estimated that he was just meters away from his parents when he disappeared, despite a reward of $100,000 for information on his whereabouts. No one came forward, and the police say that they have no active leads. Michael's disappearance shocked the city of Victoria, but remains unsolved. Number 2 is Oscar Zeta Acosta. Oscar Zeta Acosta is most famous for being the sidekick lawyer of famed journalist Hunter S. Thompson. Their drug-fueled adventures have been written about extensively and famously captured in the film Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. However, Acosta is also known for vanishing without a trace in 1974. It happened while he was on a trip to Mexico. He had told his son that he was going on a boat trip, but for who was on the boat, no one knows. Some have speculated that it may have been drug dealers. Acosta was known for mouthing off, and it may have been that he mouthed off to the wrong people on the trip. Another theory is that he had a complete psychological breakdown while on the boat and is in a psychiatric ward somewhere in Mexico. Either way, his disappearance has added to his legend over the years. And number 1 is Sabrina Eisenberg. In November of 1997 in Valrico, Florida, Sabrina Eisenberg was sleeping soundly in her crib. By the morning, the crib was empty. 5-month-old Sabrina had disappeared. The police suspected her parents were involved, but the parents claimed someone had come into the house through an unlocked garage door. Someone who had been waiting for an opportunity to take Sabrina. The charges against the parents were dropped, and both of them believe to this day that someone who couldn't have a child stole their baby. At the time of this video, 2 separate women have come forward suspecting that they may be Sabrina. DNA tests are pending, but until they are revealed, no one knows what happened to Sabrina as she lay there in her crib at home where she should have been safe. Number 10 is the Taos Hum. The small town of Taos is most famous for a mystery that will literally leave your ears ringing. Located in north-central New Mexico, Taos is home to a phenomenon that has left a number of investigators scratching their heads. Since the early 1990s, citizens have reported hearing a whirring, buzzing, or humming sound from inside the town. Seemingly coming from all directions, this bizarre noise can be heard by only about 2% of the population, though many who visit share this gift as well. Researchers to this day are still attempting to record the sound, but have failed to capture anything on their equipment, which is very strange simply due to the number of people who swear they can hear it. Whether it's biological, psychological, or extraterrestrial, the Taos Hum is truly a mystery. Number 9 is the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Born on October 2nd, 1904, Lal Bahadur Shastri was the second Prime Minister of the Republic of India and led the nation during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965. Sadly, the day after peace was announced, Shastri was found dead still in the capital of Uzbekistan. The Indian Prime Minister had seemingly suffered a fatal heart attack, but it wasn't long before the people began poking holes in that case, claiming that murder was being covered up. Shastri's doctor had declared him healthy before the trip, and he had no signs of heart issues. Then, a request for access to a document containing information about his death was denied by the Prime Minister's office. Was he suddenly killed by his own heart, or could it have been more political reasons? Number 8 is satanic decapitation.
Responding to a call to Golden State Park in San Francisco, California on February 8, 1981, police were shocked to discover a headless body wrapped in a sleeping bag. Stuffed into the victim's neck were a chicken wing and 2 kernels of corn. Nearby, they found the rest of the chicken ritualistically slaughtered. Using his fingerprints, the headless victim was identified as 29-year-old Leroy Carter Jr. Sandy Gallant, an officer who specialized in satanic and occult killings, was called in and claimed that Carter's head was being used to make a ritualistic brew. She also said that the head would be returned to the crime scene 42 days later when the brew was finished. Unfortunately, nobody believed her theory, so when the head was returned exactly 42 days later, no officers were watching. The satanic killer to this day remains unidentified. Number 7 are the Bog People. Since the 1800s, people in Northern Europe have been aware of the ancient mummies that tend to pop up in and around the sphagnum bogs. Thousands of naturally preserved bodies have been discovered in Ireland, Britain, and the Netherlands, as well as Germany and Denmark. Nicknamed the Bog People, these corpses date back to the Iron Age, and they keep appearing without any explanation as to why. The almost oxygen-free conditions in the bogs leave the bodies relatively intact, with organs, skin, and even in many cases, a full head of hair. Thus, it's been determined that many, if not all of them, were murdered, the most popular theories being that they were executed for criminal actions. Their sentencing was to be ritualistically sacrificed to the pagan gods. To this day, thousands of bodies, perfectly preserved, have been discovered, except there have been no answers. Number 6 is D.B. Cooper. On November 24, 1971, a man in his mid-40s using the alias Dan Cooper boarded Flight 305, a Boeing 727, at Portland International Airport with a one-way ticket. Soon after takeoff, he notified a flight attendant that he had a bomb and showed her a case with 8 canisters and several wires in it. Cooper, whom the media accidentally dubbed DB Cooper, managed to extort $200,000 in ransom and had it delivered to the plane by the FBI after landing in Seattle, in exchange for all passengers on board. The plane then took off, headed to New Mexico, but before it arrived, Cooper leapt out with a parachute. What happened to him to this day is still one of the greatest mysteries to man and is completely unknown. There are hundreds of different theories offered as to why he survived the jump, where he and the money ended up, and of course, who he really was. Number 5 is Pauline Picard. In April of 1922, 2-year-old Pauline Picard vanished from her home in France. A search of her town turned up nothing, but a few weeks later, police found a girl matching Pauline's description in a town over 400 kilometers away. Her parents and siblings recognized her immediately, but Pauline didn't seem to know who they were. Then, on May 27th, the body of a girl was found without a head, hands, or feet, with clothes matching what Pauline was wearing. Soon after, a head that didn't match the torso was found, all in an area that was heavily searched, meaning they were recently brought there. But if the body was Pauline's, who was the girl living with the Picards? And whose head was next to the corpse? These questions have never been answered, and the murderer has never been identified. Number 4 is the Black Dahlia murder. On January 15, 1947, the mutilated body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered in Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California. Short hailed from Boston, Massachusetts, and though she didn't find the fame that she craved while alive, she's famous today under the name the media gave her after she became the murder victim, the Black Dahlia. Due to the fact that Short's body was so horribly mangled, including being cut in half at her waist, the case became widely talked about and reported on. The investigation that followed concluded she'd either been killed on the day she was found or the evening before. It also brought forward over 150 potential suspects, though none of them had enough evidence against them to make a murder charge stick. To this day, no arrests have ever been made for the Black Dahlia's murder.
Number 3 is Ambrose Bierce. In October of 1913, 71-year-old author and American Civil War veteran Ambrose Bierce set out from Washington, D.C., visiting several battlefields that he'd fought on. His travels brought him all the way to Mexico, and on December 26th, Bierce sent a letter to his friend Blanche Partington, which said, "I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination." He was never heard from again. Bierce's disappearance had brought forward a number of theories, ranging from the author being executed by Pancho Villa, a Mexican general, to having died in the United States with his secretary. The idea being that she concocted the story and wrote the letter herself. But oddly, Bierce had a fascination for disappearances, specifically ones that occurred out in the open or in front of witnesses. Who ended his life, or is he even really dead? Number 2 is Amelia Earhart. On July 2nd, 1937, 37-year-old American pilot and best-selling author Amelia Mary Earhart vanished while flying over the Pacific Ocean. Earhart and second navigator Fred Noonan took off around midnight from Lae, New Guinea, headed for Howland Island on what was to be the third-to-last flight before completing a trip around the world. But they never made it. Many theories are still offered as to why today. Some claim that the plane ran out of fuel and crashed, or that the pair survived and settled on one of the Phoenix Islands, cut off from civilization. Then there are more wild theories that suggest that they were abducted by aliens. Earhart's extensive experience in the cockpit made the fact that her plane vanished even more mysterious, and led many to question exactly what happened to her, a question which still remains unanswered. And number 1 is the JFK assassination. Around 12:30 in the afternoon on November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was riding in a limousine convertible in Dallas, Texas, when a gunman opened fire, killing him. Lee Harvey Oswald was charged with the murder, but he claimed to be innocent and possibly a patsy due to some ties to the Soviet Union. But bizarrely, before he could be tried, Oswald himself was shot and killed by Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner who claimed to be saving Miss Kennedy from reliving the shooting at trial. Many theories have come forward, with some blaming the CIA, the KGB, Cuba's president Fidel Castro, the Mafia, and even Lyndon B. Johnson, the VP who became president when JFK died. A study done in 2013 found that 60% of Americans believe that there's a conspiracy behind the assassination. To this day, what happened to the president is still unknown and is one of the greatest mysteries in American history. Number 10 is Area 51. Area 51 has been the subject of more conspiracy theories than any one single person could count, with some speculating that the military building houses alien spacecrafts and their dead bodies, while others believe it contains weapons needed to fend off alien invaders. Area 51 is a US airbase outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, essentially in the middle of nowhere, but in a place where multiple UFOs have been seen, which has further fueled the theories. It's also been speculated that many of the inventions that we rely on today, such as computers, planes, and even cell phones, would not exist without the advanced technology on hand inside the compound. That's right, the computer or device that you're watching this video on may have been the result of reverse engineering alien technology. Number 9 are the Illuminati are preparing Earth for invasion. A theory made popular in 1988 by author Milton William Cooper and ex-Navy intelligence specialists suggests that the famous secret international society, which he claims is controlled by the Bilderberg Group, has been in regular contact with extraterrestrials. Together, they have been preparing to establish the New World Order and, in the process, reveal the existence of a more powerful race. Cooper claimed that the event will establish a new global government, enforced by the Joint Alien Illuminati organization, though it's unclear if this sudden invasion will result in a better world for those who are not enlightened enough. Number 8 is Roswell, New Mexico.
On the morning of July 8, 1947, citizens of Roswell, New Mexico awoke to find their daily newspaper had an alarming front page story. A UFO had crashed in a nearby field. The Roswell Army Airfield initially reported a flying disc had crashed, but after several government officials arrived at the scene, the official story seemed to suddenly change to the artifact being a weather balloon. Since that time, theorists have speculated that it was indeed an alien spacecraft which touched down. The reason for the conspiracy and cover-up? To reduce panic. For proof, they point at the government's story changing numerous times, as well as eyewitness claims that what crashed there was bigger than a weather balloon, and finally, the story of a nurse who allegedly walked in on an autopsy being performed on a humanoid creature. But despite all of this, we may never know the truth. Number 7 is Bigfoot is an alien. Also known as Sasquatch, Bigfoot is a mythical creature in American folklore that dates back to the late 1800s and has never been explained, unless you believe this theory, which suggests that the tall, hairy ape-like creature is actually not of this world. This theory suggests that the reason Bigfoot hasn't been caught in anything beyond some large footprints and a blurry picture is because he's simply one of the many extraterrestrial beings who visit the Earth and then leave. According to this conspiracy, several of the world's elite are actually aware of this, but to spare the masses any panic after finding out hairy aliens keep visiting, they agreed to leave Bigfoot's existence a myth. This allowing millions of believers to hunt for proof of the missing link between man and ape. Number 6 are aliens live at the center of the Earth. With everyone's eyes being fixed on the great beyond, aliens might just be having a laugh as they remain hidden right under our feet. This conspiracy theory suggests that the third rock from the sun is hollow, and its innards are home to humanoid aliens who are superior to us in both physical and mental aspects. Of course, the world's leaders are aware of those we share the planet with, and have several agreements with them, including keeping them secret. The theory goes on to say that the many UFOs that have been spotted were actually sent from inside the Earth, and are used by the aliens to keep an eye on humanity and interfere with any global disaster events, such as nuclear war. In a strange, twisted way, it is in fact possible that we have the Hollow Earth aliens to thank for still being here. Number 5 are aliens have confined us to Earth. This conspiracy theory suggests that the moon landing, which occurred on July 20th, 1969, was in fact faked, and while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin appeared on the televised broadcast, they were actually just actors on a soundstage. But while many theorists think that the reason for the deception was so that the United States would be declared the winner of the space race, others have a different reason. We didn't go to the moon because aliens will not let us. According to this, Earth is one colossal prison. Why exactly we are being made to stick here is unclear, but some believe when outsiders saw our wars and other large mistakes, they decided to restrict us. Our alien captors have allegedly interfered with the speed of which our space travel technology advances, and thus giving us false readings as to just how radioactive space is. Number 4 is alien races are too advanced to find. What if there's life out there but they're simply too advanced to be found by the average observer? One theory, dubbed the transcension hypothesis, suggests that natural evolution may bring civilizations more inward than outward. Essentially, life out there has gone more Matrix than Star Trek, and has evolved into advanced virtual reality-like life instead of developing massive ships and exploring the universe. If this is true, then alien life
life could be discovered, or perhaps it already has. Advances in artificial intelligence and VR might just be the result of secret communication projects with creatures on another plane of existence. And as mankind extends our reach through the digital world, we may find our evolutionary future has a similar destiny. Aliens may in fact be very close by, just in another world, so to speak. Number 3, our aliens have replaced key figures. In a disturbing move, shape-shifting creatures from another world have secretly made their way to Earth and essentially invaded as quietly as possible. That is, of course, if this conspiracy theory is true. A number of variations of this belief exist, but the common core of it is that many of those who led the world have been replaced by extraterrestrials. Presidents, prime ministers, military commanders, and even royalty are usually the ones believers point to, though captains of industry such as billionaire tycoons and well-respected scientists are also on that list. But while replacing high-ranking and powerful individuals would be an asset during invasion preparations, it's very often celebrities like Beyonce, James Franco, and even Paul McCartney that are called out for being off-worlders in fake skins. It may in fact be that your favorite entertainer or celebrity is in fact not of this world. Number 2 is Jesus was an alien. If aliens have indeed walked among humans, they are likely quite adept at blending into crowds and going undetected. But according to one theory, some of them weren't very quiet while being in human form, the biggest rebel being Jesus Christ himself. Think about it. If the Bible's tale of the Savior's crucifixion and then resurrection is in fact historically accurate, then a man somehow possessed supernatural powers, including a healing touch, transmutation gifts, and an ability to walk on water. That's not to say Jesus wasn't the Son of God, but this belief also claims that God may also be another alien, or even the planet or ship that the creatures come from. But Christ wasn't alone either. Buddha, Sri Krishna, and Confucius were all members of the same powerful alien race. Could it be that these powerful beings were in fact aliens? Only you can decide. And number 1 are we are aliens. One conspiracy theory that may shock you happens to be one that has potentially the most proof to back it up, and that belief is that human beings are not actually native to this planet. That's right, each of us might be the distant relatives of extraterrestrials who wanted to colonize Earth millions of years ago and now simply visit to check on how their experiment is going. This theory continues that many of the global higher-ups have known this for quite a while and give those aliens, or rather our ancestors, regular reports on the state of the planet. There's also a variation of the belief that says that some of the aliens walk among us still today. For proof, experts point to the fact that humans haven't evolved a good enough protection for sunlight exposure, and that our bodies are better suited for a planet with less gravity. Could it be that you and I are aliens? Perhaps we'll never know.
Number 1 is the Voynich manuscript. Known as the world's most mysterious manuscript, this 240-page book dates as far back as 1404 and is written in a language that is unknown. Acquired by Wilfrid Voynich in 1912, the book's pages are filled with strange events, weird diagrams, and pictures of plants that don't match any on Earth, leading some to believe that the book was written by aliens. But let's be honest, what's more likely, that aliens wrote this book or some guy popped a psychedelic drug and was like, I think I'll write a book! Number 2 is the wow signal. In 1977, Jerry Amen was scanning radio waves from deep space when he was contacted by a signal that lasted 72 seconds. The signal was loud and clear and came from constellation Sagittarius, 120 light years away, which is an area of space that no human has ever gone before. Every attempt since to locate the signal has failed, leading to all kinds of speculation. It's called the wow signal because that's what Jerry wrote on the printout when it happened. And it's a good thing he didn't get so excited that he wrote something crazy like Holy Alfred Batman Dick Balls, because then it would have been called the Holy Alfred Batman Dick Balls signal. Is it too late to change the name? Number 3 is angel hair. This worldwide phenomenon is a mystery that has yet to be explained. Angel hair is the term given to a mysterious silk-like thread that falls from the sky. Nobody knows what causes it or what it's made of, as it cannot be tested due to its sensitive nature. Those who have witnessed it speculate that it could be from spiders, UFOs, or possibly spider UFOs. And if that's the case, then I want off this planet. Number 4 is the Beale ciphers. Dating back to the 1800s, these 3 ciphertexts allegedly reveal the location of one of the grandest buried treasures in US history, full of gold, silver, and jewels. A man named Thomas Jefferson Beale wrote the ciphers and then mysteriously disappeared. Only the second text of the 3 has been deciphered, which indicates that the treasure is buried somewhere in Bedford County, Virginia. And to those of you out there who continually flock to this area year after year to dig for this treasure, if it exists, Bedford is 776 square miles in size, so yeah, good luck with that. Number 5 is the Phaistos disc. Discovered by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier in 1908, this mysterious disc is up to 3,500 years old, made of fired clay, and includes 241 mysterious symbols that no one's been able to read. Neither its meaning nor where it was created is known, making it one of the most famous archaeological mysteries to date. Personally, I love when things like this are given so much importance without actually knowing what it is, because I think it would be hilarious if it just turned out to be a plate that some guy used to cook his pizza on. Number 6 is the Shugborough inscription. In Staffordshire, England, there's a monument depicting a mirror image of the painting Shepherds of Arcadia, underneath which lies a mysterious inscription. It's been called one of the world's top uncracked ciphertexts for over 250 years, with some of the world's greatest minds unable to do it, including Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens. There's a theory that the inscription was a clue left by the Knights of Templar as to the location of the Holy Grail, but I suggest you don't listen to such conspiracy theories, because they can make you crazy. Number 7 is the Georgia Guidestones. Also known as American Stonehenge, this all-granite monument was erected in 1979 in Elbert County, Georgia. It's engraved with 10 new commandments in 8 different languages. Its purpose, origin, and who commissioned it are all a mystery, but some believe that it's being used by the person who created it to call for a new world order. But that conspiracy's been around for a long time and it always sounds ridiculous. But, you know, in the event that there is a new world order coming, I, for one, would like to welcome our new world overlords. Please don't enslave me. I can make you videos. Number 8 is the Taos hum. This low-pitched sound is similar to the hum of a refrigerator and can be found in Taos, New Mexico. What's most interesting is the hum cannot be picked up by electronic equipment, making the source impossible to pinpoint. In fact, in 1997, US Congress commissioned scientists to find the source of the hum, and they were unable to. And just from a practical standpoint, it must really suck to live in that area, because I mean, it'd be impossible to sleep or even hold a conversation with someone. See what I mean? Number 9 are the South African metal spheres. Over the last few decades, miners in South Africa have been digging up mysterious metal spheres. Each sphere is about 1 inch in diameter and has strange etchings on them. They're all made of metal, some being solid and some being hollow. What's really interesting about these is that these spheres are being dug out of rock that is pre-Cambrian, meaning it's 2.8 billion years old. No human ever lived that long ago, and the Earth itself is only 4.5 billion years old, so how did it get there? It's crazy. And number 10 are the sailing stones. Death Valley National Park in California is home to stones that move by themselves. Seriously. The rocks move slowly over years without any human intervention and leave long trails in their wake. Even the geniuses at NASA cannot find an explanation for this mysterious movement. And what's really crazy is that people have actually begun to steal these rocks. And I have a question, why would you want to steal a rock that seemingly has a mind of its own? Does that really sound like a good idea to you? You bring these rocks into your house, next thing you know it bashes in your skull, steals all your shit, and drives away in your car. I've seen it happen too many times. Number 10 are Apollo aliens. The Apollo space program ran from 1960 until December 19th, 1972, when the final mission, Apollo 17, ended. After that, manned missions to the moon ceased. The official reasons for this was that America had essentially won the space race against the Soviet Union, and that it was inordinately expensive, and that the American public would no longer be interested in going to the moon. However, some believe that the reason Apollo 17 was the final time time that man stepped foot on the moon was because we encountered something else out there. Something that warned us to never go back. Various theories have been given as to why this happened, but the creepiest are that it could have been aliens or even cosmic intelligence which warned us to leave them alone. Number 9 are ancient Mars civilizations. Most of the theories surrounding Mars suggest that there was once an intelligent civilization on the planet, and for some reason it was wiped out. Richard Hoagland is the most famous proponent of this theory, and believes that there are telltale signs on the Martian surface suggesting that an alien species once lived there. These include photographs from both Mars landers and orbiting satellites. Hoagland and others claim that tantalizing images of Martian pyramids, monoliths, and even statues have been found. They even suggest that the existence of a Martian civilization is being kept from the public for an unknown reason. Did an ancient civilization once exist? And if they did disappear, what could that mean for life on Earth? Number 8 is Stanley Kubrick and the moon landings. One of the strangest space conspiracy theories is that film director Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landings. Allegedly, Kubrick impressed NASA with his 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. NASA then asked Kubrick to stage similar realistic-looking space photography to persuade the American public that the Apollo astronauts had indeed reached the moon. While this may seem outlandish, there are some strange images that are included in Kubrick's 1980 film The Shining, which some believe was a confession of sorts. The character Danny, for example, wears a sweater displaying the Apollo rocket, and the infamous room 237 is said to represent the moon's distance from Earth, 237,000 miles. Could these conspiracy theories be true? Did we in fact land on the moon, or were we lied to for some unknown reason? Number 7 is the hollow Earth alien theory. The theory that the Earth is hollow has been around for thousands of years. But while the ancient peoples of the world populated this theoretical subterranean world with supernatural entities and even hell itself, a recent theory proposes that an advanced civilization lives inside that hollow cavity. It was in 1818 that the American Army officer John Cleve Sims Jr. proposed that the Earth was hollow, and that at the North Pole there is a large opening allowing investigation of this unexplored frontier. Since then, believers argue that there is evidence for UFOs moving into this opening. These allegedly advanced spacecraft are seen by many as proof that there is an advanced alien species living directly beneath our feet. Number 6 are dead cosmonauts. The dead cosmonauts refers to a conspiracy theory about who was the first person in space. The history books record this as Yuri Gagarin in 1961, but some allege that other cosmonauts were sent by the Soviet Union into space before Gagarin. This was allegedly covered up because those cosmonauts died before they could make it home. In fact, there is some evidence to suggest that this conspiracy theory may be true. Documents were leaked in December of 1959 by an alleged high-ranking Czech communist claiming 4 cosmonauts had already died in an attempt to reach space. Other sources do exist, but the most chilling account comes from the Giudicia Cordelia brothers, 2 Italian amateur radio operators who claim to have recorded secret radio transmissions from an unknown cosmonaut in space as he slowly suffocated. Number 5 is the secret moon base. Some conspiracy theorists believe that there is a secret moon base on the dark side of the moon. The moon is tidally locked, which means that we only ever see one side of it from the Earth's surface. So, the theory goes that if you visited the other side of the moon, you'd find a huge secret base somewhere hidden out of view. The owners of that base change depending on which conspiracy theorist you talk to. Some say that it's an alien base, some believe that the Russians live there, or the most bizarre of all,
that it's a Nazi hideout. As bizarre as that last one may seem, some believe it because Nazis developed advanced rocket technology in their V-1 and V-2 flying bomb programs, and that they flew off in a giant rocket, escaped Berlin in 1945, and built a base on the far side of the moon. Number 4 is Satellite USA 193. The Satellite USA 193 conspiracy theory has a lot to back it up. USA 193 was launched into orbit in 2006 from Vandenberg Air Force Base. The satellite was owned by the National Reconnaissance Office, and its purpose was listed as classified. Rumors persisted that it was a spy satellite, which in itself isn't that unusual. However, what is strange is that the Air Force used a modified SM-3 missile to obliterate the satellite while in orbit. The official story is that the satellite malfunctioned and had to be destroyed due to hazardous materials on board. However, conspiracy theorists believe that the satellite was destroyed to either stop sensitive information from literally falling into the wrong hands, while others believe that the events were staged to allow the United States to carry out tests on a secret program designed to shoot down nuclear missiles while in orbit. Number 3 is Majestic 12. Majestic 12, or MJ-12 for short, is allegedly the codename for a group of scientists and military experts whose job it was to recover and research recovered alien spacecraft. This group of experts were supposedly assigned this task by President Harry S. Truman himself in 1947, following the rumored Roswell flying saucer crash. Many conspiracy theorists cite the Majestic 12 as evidence that the United States government not only knows about aliens, but has proof that they exist. The first mention of MJ-12 was in a series of alleged government documents discovered in 1984. While skeptics and the FBI claim that they're fake, ufology experts such as Stanton Friedman, a retired nuclear scientist, believe that they may be real. And perhaps most disturbing of all, if they are real, who knows what sort of alien technology the government has recovered. Number 2 is a solar-powered UFO. In March of 2012, a conspiracy theory started that NASA and other space agencies were hiding UFO evidence from the public. This started when a series of images recorded by the Solar Dynamics Observatory showed a strange object next to the sun. In the images, the object appears to be draining material from the sun and then moves off quickly. While some allege that this is an alien spacecraft siphoning off solar material for fuel, NASA scientists claim that the images are the result of a common phenomenon called a solar prominence. The sun sheds some of its material and then moves towards a cold spot known as a filament channel. It's thought that this is due to fluctuations in the magnetic field on the sun's surface. However, conspiracy theorists have a much simpler explanation: aliens. And number 1 is SpaceX isn't real. Elon Musk's SpaceX firm has reinvigorated the space industry, but it's also reinvigorated conspiracy theorists. SpaceX reached new heights by testing its Falcon Heavy rocket in 2018, and sent Elon Musk's old red Tesla Roadster towards the asteroid belt. However, some conspiracy theorists believe that the entire flight was faked and amounted to nothing more than a car advertisement. During the Falcon Heavy flight, a live video feed was sent from Musk's car as it hurled away from the Earth. Some believe that the lack of stars and the way that the light resembles an unnatural light source shows that the footage is fake. Some even believe that it could be CGI. Number 10 are the contactees. From the 1940s until the 1960s, the FBI began investigating a group of people known as the contactees. These individuals all had one thing in common: they claimed that they had all been contacted by extraterrestrials. While the initial list of contactees was large, there was a handful of people the FBI showed particular interest in. People like George Adamski, who took photographs of alien spacecraft, were investigated. But one of the most unusual people considered a contactee contactee was Orfeo Angelucci. He believed that his mental energy had been taken up into space and that he had lived his entire life in the body of an avatar. If this sounds far-fetched, consider that a Freedom of Information request regarding the FBI's investigation into Angelucci revealed that the records of his case had been destroyed. Number 9 is Jason Derrick Brown. The FBI's most wanted list is world famous for documenting the criminals and dangerous individuals that the FBI is trying to capture. There are several strange cases listed on the most wanted list, and Jason Derrick Brown's disappearance is one of them. Brown became notorious for robbing an armored car guard in 2004. This resulted in a fatality, and Brown took the money that he had stolen and disappeared. Since then, the FBI have been trying to track him down, but they have had very little to go on. Based on a chance encounter with someone who knew Brown before his crime, he was still alive and well in 2009, 5 years after his crimes. At the time of this video, he's still a fugitive, and the FBI has yet to explain how he has remained hidden from view. Number 8 is the Betrayer. In 1985, one of America and Britain's greatest spies was in jeopardy. His name was Oleg Gordivsky. He had climbed the ranks of the KGB and had been promoted to the top position within the KGB's British spy ring. All along, he was actually feeding important information to the US and the UK. One day, he was suddenly recalled to Moscow, and he was certain that the KGB had discovered that he was a double agent. Several of the highest-ranking US and British spies were exposed soon after. Someone had betrayed them. The FBI and CIA carried out an extensive investigation into exactly what had happened. However, all of these years later, they still do not know. But the American and British intelligence services maintain that there was a powerful spy among their ranks who was never revealed, and that they may even still be active today. Number 7 is Robert Friend. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Jones Friend was an airman during World War II and served in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars. While his military career spanned nearly 30 years, there's something particularly strange about his service. You see, Robert Friend was the investigator who oversaw the Air Force's investigation of UFOs. The investigation was famously dubbed Project Blue Book, and while the official publication of that investigation claims that most UFO encounters could be explained, there is one thing which cannot be easily accounted for, and that is that the FBI held case files on Robert himself. Stranger still, those files were destroyed before they could be declassified. Many people believe that they contained important information about what Robert Friend really knew about the UFOs in American airspace. Number 6 is Hitler Lives. After the fall of Berlin in 1945, it was discovered that Adolf Hitler had taken his own life. His remains were taken by the Soviet army, and it was concluded that Hitler had met a grisly end. There have been various conspiracy theories about him having escaped Germany and then settling in Argentina. What makes this theory plausible is that the remains the Soviets took had been proven to not be Hitler's, and that many Nazis did escape to South America after the war. The FBI took the possibility of Hitler still being alive so seriously that they opened a case file on him. Those files have recently been declassified and describe his alleged escape to Argentina and eyewitness testimonies that people saw him alive after the war. If this proved to be true, it would be one of the most shocking moments in human history. Number 5 is Milton William Cooper. Milton William Cooper was a controversial radio host, writer, and conspiracy theorist who believed that many of the world's most dangerous diseases had been deliberately released by an elite group who wanted control of the world. Cooper's views that there was a conspiracy to manipulate the human race in order to benefit a small number of people became more and more pressing throughout the 1990s. During this period, he publicly and privately stated that he felt he was being targeted by unethical elements within the government for exposing the truth. At the time, many discounted his beliefs, and many still do today. But the FBI file on Cooper remains a controversial and some say mysterious one, as Cooper was fatally wounded in 2001 when the authorities attempted to arrest him for a number of crimes. Number 4 is the Finders Cult. The Finders Cult case files are bizarre to say the least. The organization itself had been subject to numerous podcasts and deep dives online, with people trying to find out anything they could about this group. The FBI themselves have investigated this group, and many believe that they're responsible for some of the most depraved crimes imaginable. The suggestion is that the Finders Cult is comprised of hugely powerful business people, politicians, and even some popular modern-day influencers. They've even been linked to satanic rituals, and the name of the cult is supposedly due to how they find their victims. No one knows for sure if they exist or not, but the claims that it does were taken seriously enough for the FBI to look into them. Number 3 is the Monster Hunter. On June 5th, 2019, the FBI declassified many of its files regarding Bigfoot encounters and sightings. In one of the case files is a strange back and forth between a Bigfoot researcher and an FBI agent. The release of this exchange has led to a new conspiracy theory about what the government knows about the Bigfoot phenomenon. During the exchange, the monster hunter known as Peter Byrne sent skin and hair samples to the FBI to see if they would analyze them. It took a long time, but eventually they did, and in the released documents they claimed the samples were from a deer. However, in a strange twist, Peter claims he never received the letter in those documents with the test results, leading some to speculate that the file has been tampered with in order to hide the true results of those tests. Number 2 is the Majestic 12. The Majestic 12 group is one of the most controversial topics within the ufology community. The group has also been heavily researched by the FBI, and case files exist for many of its powerful and influential members. In the 1980s, 2 FBI officers were both sent classified memos with the heading Operation Majestic 12. This memo appeared to show explicit knowledge from inside the American government that they had retrieved a crashed alien spacecraft. The memo was supposedly a briefing that was given to President Eisenhower when he was elected. The Majestic 12 involved all those who researched or had knowledge of the crash. The names of those involved do check out as important scientists and military personnel, and if the memo is real, our world just got far more mysterious. And number 1 is the Aviary. After the end of the Cold War, it was revealed that a man named Harry Rositsky was an American spy master. A spy master is someone who oversees a network of spies that carries out the spy master's instructions. Rositsky was referred to as the Falcon, and this name puzzled many people. It was soon rumored that the group he headed was called the Aviary, with each spy given the code name of a bird. While Rositsky gathered important information on the Nazis and then later the Soviets, many believe that he was the one who discovered the truth behind the previously mentioned Majestic 12, and that he leaked their existence. A Freedom of Information request revealed that he was indeed a spy master. The FBI then claimed that there were other pages about him, but they had been misplaced or destroyed.
Number 1 is The Rugrats Never Happened. Rugrats was a massive cartoon show in the 1990s that revolved around a group of toddlers and their adventures. In fact, the series was so popular that it lasted several seasons and even had a film produced, but it may have all been a grand psychological lie. This theory says that all of the Rugrats were really just a figment of the oldest Rugrat, Angelica's, imagination. What? I know, just hear me out. This one's a little disturbing. The explanation is that Chucky died a long time ago along with his mother. That's why Chaz, his father, is a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy was a stillborn. That's why his father Stu is always in the basement making toys for his son who never got a chance to live. The DeVilles had an abortion, and since Angelica couldn't figure out whether it was going to be a boy or a girl, she created the twins. And finally, this theory explains why Angelica can talk to both children and adults. Yeah. Well, that's one to haunt your childhood memories. Thanks, theorists. Number 2 is Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls share a universe. This theory says that Samurai Jack and the Powerpuff Girls may in fact share the same universe. First, art direction on both shows was by the same guy, Genndy Tartakovsky. Next, Powerpuff Girls tells the story of 3 little girls that were created by Professor Utonium to use their superpowers to fight evil. The city that they defend is Townsville, USA, a fictional city run by a childlike mayor. But distinctive signage and landmarks that are found in Townsville, USA are also found in Samurai Jack. Inspired by Akira Kurosawa, Samurai Jack follows a displaced samurai who struggles against an evil demonic wizard named Aku. The show itself is set in a distant dystopian future, and the destroyed city looks an awful lot like Townsville, USA. Based on these similarities and the timeline, many fans believe that Samurai Jack is actually a loose sequel to Powerpuff Girls. Yay! Another disturbing ending to another childhood favorite to many. I'm feeling good about these, how about you? Number 3 is the Magic School Bus kids grew into the Planeteers. During the 90s, Magic School Bus made its way onto television screens with the goal of presenting science in a fun way to kids. Miss Frizzle led a diverse group of kids through adventures every week, but those kids look awfully similar to an older group of Planeteers. This theory says that put side by side, these two groups of kids look incredibly alike and thus are likely the same people. Now, since Captain Planet aired earlier than the Magic School Bus, it's theorized that the Magic School Bus is actually a prequel to Captain Planet. To further support this theory, both shows are about the importance of science and are all about learning. Now granted, unlike Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack, there's no direct connection between the two universes, but still, it makes you think. You know, the Magic School Bus really set a high standard for school bus rides. I never got to go on a magical journey through the human body. All we ever got to do was go to the zoo. Actually, that wasn't all that bad. I got to see the elephants. Number 4 is Gilligan's Island's 7 Deadly Sins. We're all familiar with the 7 Deadly Sins, either from the Bible or that great Brad Pitt movie where they open the box at the end. Remember that? Well, this theory says that the shipwrecked sitcom Gilligan's Island from 1964 is actually based on those sins. The 7 castaways on the island are each connected to a sin. The professor is pride. I mean, he can build radio technology out of coconuts. You know he harbors an ego. Marianne envies Ginger's looks, while Ginger is lust incarnate. Mr. Howell, with his trunk full of cash, is greed, and Mrs. Howell embodies sloth because she does nothing on the island. And the final 2 sins of gluttony and wrath belong to the skipper, who is a rather large fellow and had a tendency to hit Gilligan with his hat almost every episode. That leaves the one who manages to keep them on the island episode after episode in this hellish life, Gilligan as Satan himself. Yeah, I'll give you all a moment to collect the tops of your heads that just blew off from that knowledge bomb I just dropped on you. Number 5 is the West Wing alternate universe. The West Wing was a show created by Aaron Sorkin that began in 1999, starring Martin Sheen. The show follows the trials and tribulations of President Bartlett and his staff through his presidency that takes place over the real Bush administration. This led many fans to wonder where President Bartlett fits in among the long line of presidents and how a Democrat could be nominated at that time in presidential history. Those questions spawned this theory, which says that Bartlett's presidency took place in a universe in which former President Richard Nixon was impeached instead of pardoned for the Watergate scandal. That one action would have potentially reverberated and led to a man like Bartlett taking office. Well, I can't blame those fans. I mean, who doesn't wonder what the world would be like if Bush never became president? I picture an America filled with smiles, rainbows, and candy for all. Number 6 is Ned Stark is not Jon Snow's father. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, like many others, you're probably very cautious of large twists and turns and spoilers, so be warned, this theory might actually end up on the show one day. Commonly known by the bastard named Snow, Jon believes he's the son of Ned Stark and his mother as a woman that Ned met while off at war. But the theory is that Jon may in fact actually be the son of Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister, who had a child with Rhaegar Targaryen, the son of the Mad King. I could go on with more names and details, but that would just get confusing, and frankly I have enough trouble keeping up with the show already. Both Kit Harington and Sean Bean, who play Snow and Stark respectively, have commented that they question that John is the son of Ned. Well, spoiler alert, but I'm calling that ish right now. That is happening on the show. Watch what happens. Number 7 is SpongeBob and Friends Are Mutants. Created by marine biologist and animator Steven Hillenburg, SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the highest rated programs to ever air on Nickelodeon. The show follows SpongeBob and a gang of bizarre characters through their misadventures in a land called Bikini Bottom. The show can be quite bizarre, leading some fans to create a theory that SpongeBob and his friends are the result of radioactivity. Strangely though, this might not be that far from the truth, as the official synopsis for the setting of the show, Bikini Bottom, takes place under the real location of Bikini Atoll, a place where nuclear tests took place in the 1940s and 50s. That would explain how the inhabitants of Bikini Bottom were affected by nuclear fallout, making them mutants of some kind. Well, that's not that weird as long as the talking sponge and his starfish friend don't get violent and come after humanity for revenge. Please stay in the ocean and keep making the kitty smile. Thanks. Number 8 is Scooby-Doo takes place in a depression. Scooby-Doo is a fondly remembered children's show that followed a group of teens who uncovered mysteries with their talking dog. But many people have examined the world that Scooby and the gang were exploring, which led to a disturbing theory. The theory is that the original series was set after a horrible economic depression. That would explain why everything is abandoned and falling apart, and why the villains are people that would normally be well respected. Professors, museum curators, and celebrities, all of which have fallen on hard times due to the economic fallout. They would then don a monster or ghost getup and haunt their former workplace. If only Scooby and the gang knew how to help these ghosts with their retirement funds, it would have made the show, well, a lot more boring, but less scary. Number 9 is Happy Days leads to That 70s Show. Yay, a happy theory! Kind of. Both Happy Days and That 70s Show have become sitcom staples, and you might think that that's all they share, but maybe not. There's a theory that says that That 70s Show might actually be a sort of sequel to Happy Days. The characters of Richie and Ralph go off to the Korean War while Fonzie stays behind. Richie, without Fonzie, who kept him cool, comes back from the war 20 years later as a bitter man and now goes by Red. Ralph, now known as Bob, has a fractured relationship with Red because the glue that was the Fonz is gone. Another interesting similarity is that Happy Days was set in the 50s but shot in the 70s, and That 70s Show was set in the 70s but shot in the 90s. Okay, so this wasn't exactly a happy theory, but both shows were pretty funny and made a bunch of people laugh, so let's focus on that. And number 10, Jetsons and the Flintstones in the same society. Hanna-Barbera has one of the best collections of cartoon characters, all with their own respective settings. But some fans have a theory that the Jetsons and the Flintstones are two portions of the same society. The Jetsons live their life in a picturesque future version of suburban life, while the people in Bedrock have built a society that rejects the day-to-day electronic assistance. The idea is that the Flintstones have constructed a way of life similar to that of their long-dead ancestors. That would help explain the talking animals, as in the future these creatures would be synthetic. Animals in this world would have died off, so they utilized robot animals and used them like kitchen appliances. Furthermore, in 1987 there was a crossover episode where the Flintstones met the Jetsons. The episode involved time travel, but perhaps it was never time travel at all. Okay, I'm good. That's enough ruining your favorite TV shows. You're welcome. Number 1 is the New World Order. Starting off this list is a theory that says that the people that you think are in charge are really taking orders from mysterious figures in the shadows. Yes, folks, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but the world is being run under one secretive, authoritarian government known as the NWO, or New World Order. This theory actually dates back to the 1940s and suggests that there is a secret society of wealthy and politically powerful people working to establish and maintain control over the entire planet. Other, more religious theorists claim that the New World Order would fulfill prophecies and bring about an apocalypse through an antichrist or similar event. I can't say that without laughing. Cooperative governments like the United Nations and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, known as NATO, are some notable steps towards this theory. Some even go as far as to believe that with the European Union uniting under one currency, next is going to be North America with the Amero. From there, it's only one more step until we have one world currency under a one world bank under a one world government. That was really hard to say. One world, one world. Look, some of this theory has merit, but you can't just go around believing every little thing that you hear. If that were the case, someone would tell you that the government is run by lizard people. that's coming up? Oh. Number 2 is poison snow. If you're at the top of the government and you want to poison, say, I don't know, millions of people, what better way could there possibly be than to dump fake plastic snow laced with chemicals on a large population? Okay, well, there's probably a whole lot of ways to poison a whole lot of people, but the poison snow theory was the conclusion that many leapt to during the winter of 2014 when the city of Atlanta, Georgia experienced a snowfall. Now, while this is rare, it's not unheard of, but it still left some people believing that the government was trying to poison them. Oh, mama, what is this white stuff? I'm gonna die. Conspiracy believers state that the snow was actually a chemical that was manufactured to look like snow and was dumped on the population in order to make them sick, control their minds, or possibly even kill them. This theory stemmed from a video that a woman made a while ago trying to melt a snowball with a barbecue lighter, only to find that the snow only turned black instead of melted. Oh, this woman's never heard of science before. Okay, allow me to explain. If you hold a lighter up to a snowball, the butane or lighter fluid in the lighter gives off soot. So of course it's going to collect on the outside of the snowball, which creates a black film on the surface. Education for the crazy people. Number 3 is the government wants you sick. This one's actually kind of a well-established conspiracy theory that suggests that the medical industry, big pharmaceutical companies, and the government are working to conceal a cure for cancer and other widespread diseases. The idea behind this is actually pretty simple, which is that these organizations have an incentive to not release a cure for diseases, but to only continue to treat them. Which makes sense because a sick person for a lifetime makes a whole lot more money than a cured one. The United States alone holds 40% of the global pharmaceutical market, worth about $413 billion. Cancer and other devastating illnesses happen to create piles upon piles of money for these industries through expensive medical treatments, not to mention the colossal amount of funding that they get. As proof, many conspiracy theorists point to A-list celebrities, sports icons, and politicians at the top of the government and claim that they never seem to suffer from the conditions that the lower class people do. And their excuse for when these elite people get sick? Well, clearly they're just being brave enough to die for the secret. Number 4 is the government created HIV/AIDS. Since 1981, when the AIDS epidemic was first reported on, theorists have claimed that the disease was created in a lab by the CIA. The conspiracy was that their intention by creating it was to eliminate all homosexuals and drastically reduce the population of African Americans, not just in the United States, but worldwide. They pointed out that the virus became widely spread soon after vaccine experiments for hepatitis B were held and claimed that only gay men were selected as test subjects. Even the former president of South Africa stated his belief that the virus hadn't originated in Africa, but was a tool used to repress his own people. Now, while the actual origin of this virus is still somewhat disputed, most people believe that it was the result of some sort of infectious contact between a monkey and a human in the 1930s. By contact, I mean sex, you know what I'm saying? The monkey and the human was having sex, just don't have sex with monkeys, bad things happen. Number 5 is the blood sacrifice to the beast month. This one sounds cheery. Have you ever noticed that the second half of April always seems to attract horrible natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and costly accidents, and an overall devastatingly large amount of death? No, me neither. But of course, some theorists have made a note of it and believe that it's a part of an ancient religion that's still alive today. The period between April 19th and May 1st is referred to as blood sacrifice to the beast. According to the legend, ancient practitioners of the Jewish faith used to worship a sun god named Baal in ceremonies that involved a human sacrifice. So of course today, any tragedies that happen to occur during the blood sacrifice to the beast period of time are supposedly the work of the government trying to fulfill the sacrifice needs of this ancient god. Why does the government care about this? Somebody explain that to me. Makes no sense. Now, if you're wondering why they think this, some April tragedies that have been documented include the Waco massacre, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Columbine and Virginia Tech massacres, and the Boston Marathon bombing. Well, these people might be crazy, but at least they can keep track of dates. Okay. Number 6 is the Israeli shark theory. Ooh, this is a fun one. This theory was developed in December of 2010 after Egyptian tourism took a nosedive due to a series of shark attacks involving vacationers in a South Sinai resort. The Egyptian media reported that though some sharks had been captured, alarmingly they were pulled from the water with GPS devices attached to them. Now, of course, because you basically can't trust any media nowadays, they went on to reveal that the Israeli government was responsible for the sharks being there, claiming that Israel was attacking the Egyptian economy directly through scare tactics, more particularly sharks. Dumbfounded, scientists later explained that the GPS devices were planted by marine researchers as a way for them to locate and study the creatures. Also, the sharks' attraction to the coast was eventually explained as a result of people dumping dead sheep into the water, which obviously ignited even more theories. Why are people killing sheep in that area of the region en masse so much that they need to throw them in the water? But as if this theory wasn't crazy enough, this is not the first time that Israel was blamed for attacks involving animals. They apparently also use spying eagles and griffin vultures to carry out their wishes. What do these theorists think, that the Israeli government is made up of magical druids that can control creatures? Little common sense, people. Number 7 is Hillary Clinton and 9/11. Hillary Clinton was at the center of several government scandals during the course of her campaign to be president. Everything has been theorized about this woman, including that she's an Illuminati agent, a murderer, or that she's just a puppet for her husband, former President Bill Clinton, and his shadow government. There's even some who believe that she's not really human, but rather a cyborg or a mutated lizard person. Oh, now we're getting into the lizard people. However, one of the lesser known conspiracies, born out of the campaign itself, evolved through her choice in logo art. The letter H fused with a pointing arrow obviously holds symbolism in regards to progression or moving forward. But some Americans who stood against Hillary actually believed that the symbolism was an intentional reference to the September 11th terrorist attacks against the United States. It was said that the blue columns represent the World Trade Center and the arrow depicts the flight path of the hijacked planes. They believe that the logo was created to draw attention to Hillary through political controversy. Do you think these people leave the house every day with different colored tinfoil hats, or do you think they just go with good old original silver every day? I wonder. Number 8 is FEMA is turning Walmarts into prison camps. Apparently nothing can be a coincidence when you're a fanatical conspiracy theorist, even seemingly trivial plumbing issues. In April of 2015, Walmart stores across the southern United States were shut down because of plumbing issues. Only 6 stores in total were affected in the states of Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, and California. This proved to simply be way too much of a coincidence for the conspiracy believers, who surmised that the closures were in preparation for a massive event. Ooh, prepare yourself for this one, because it's a little out there. The supposed event that was going to happen was a covert operation called Jade Helm 15, which would secretly put the southern states under martial law in order to confiscate guns and place political opponents into these prison camps. Going further down the rabbit hole, these Walmart prisons would be disguised as FEMA refugee camps. Maybe Walmart just had a price rollback on nut bars. Maybe that's why there's so many people that buy into this nonsense. Number 9 is Saddam Hussein's Stargate. I'm starting to think that there are some people who see a horribly evil villain in a TV or movie and genuinely believe that that's how some enemies of the United States actually act. You know, as if they just built a doomsday weapon and are about to destroy the entire world with it, that kind of a thing. Well, there's an absolutely insane theory circling around about why President Bush actually invaded Iraq in 2003. Allow me to explain. The theory states that somewhere in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, with the help of a think tank of geniuses, had been secretly hiding and reverse engineering some ancient alien technology. Yup. The artifacts were either remnants of a previous civilization that lived in the area hundreds or even thousands of years ago, or it was part of a UFO crash that landed in the 1990s. And apparently this technology was possibly a Stargate, which the god Anu-Kai would use for his return to the physical world. Oh, it just gets weirder and weirder. When Bush heard about the Stargate and the prophecy surrounding the return of Anu-Kai, he sent the military in to deal with Saddam and it. Actually, hold on a minute. Has anyone written this into a movie script yet? Because this is a film I would pay to see. And number 10 is the reptile connection. The last entry on our list easily takes the cake for the craziest. This theory, created by English writer David Icke and now incredibly believed by far too many people to count, states that the world's most powerful elite are actually a race of lizard-like beings from outer space. The reason, of course, that we don't immediately recognize these people and say, hey, that's a lizard alien man, is of course because they can change form at will. Some famous alleged reptiles include Queen Elizabeth, President Barack Obama, actor Benedict Cumberbatch, and famous inventor Nikola Tesla, as well as Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, of course, a race of lizard people being obsessed with, being humanity's overlords would want to impersonate an actor for the limelight. In the future, the lizards aim to achieve their own new world order, there's that term again, and probably enslave us all. Surprisingly, lots of silly people actually believe in this theory, as Icke's lectures sell very well in various countries. Ugh, these just get more and more ridiculous. Number 10 is the Roswell time travel incident. Much has been written about the Roswell crash of 1947, where an alleged alien spacecraft crash-landed in Roswell, New Mexico. The US government then quickly removed the bodies and aircraft, but not before a number of locals and low-level officials saw what happened. But one interpretation of Roswell is that it wasn't an alien craft, but instead a failed time travel attempt from the future. Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso claimed to be involved in researching the bodies as well as the debris found that day. He stated on record that the bodies were probably genetically engineered to withstand both space travel and moving throughout time. The Roswell incident can then be reinterpreted not as an alien visitation, but as a probe from the far-flung distant human future. One which perhaps wanted to pass on a warning about what was ahead for our species. Number 9 is the Iranian Time Viewer. In 2013, an Iranian businessman called Ali Rezegi claimed to have built a time machine which was capable of predicting the next 5 to 8 years of a person's life. Rezegi claimed that his working prototype was the first of its kind, and that it could change humanity's destiny, allowing it to negotiate future dangers before they occurred. However, the archaic time machine, as it came to be called, has so far never been released. Rezegi claims that it's because of intellectual property issues with China. Without stringent laws to stop companies from mass manufacturing other people's ideas, China would be able to mass produce the device if it saw a prototype. Rezegi claims that while China and the United States continue their attempts to develop their own time travel machines, that his will remain safely hidden until it is truly needed. Number 8 is the chronovisor. Another device which allowed users to see into the future was known as the chronovisor. Designed by Italian priest and scientist Pellegrino Ernetti, who died in 1994, the chronovisor was an extension of the work carried out by another priest in the 1960s called Francois Brune. Descriptions of the chronovisor describe it as a cathode ray tube, which was found inside televisions of the time and a viewing screen. Levers and buttons allowed the user to select any time or place in history and view what happened. The chronovisor supposedly worked by decoding the electromagnetic radiation left behind by previous events. Conspiracy theorists believe that the machine was taken by the Illuminati and is now used for an unknown sinister purpose. Number 7 are messages from a time traveler. John Titor was an online bulletin board user in the early 2000s who claimed to be a time traveler sent from the year 2036. He claimed to be hopping between parallel worlds and times and made predictions about an upcoming nuclear war. In his posts, Titor described what the world would be like after the conflict, describing how the United States would break up into 5 smaller nations and that the world would be devastated by the war. As Titor described himself growing up in the aftermath and joining a shotgun infantry unit in Florida for 4 years, 20 years later he would travel back in time to avert the catastrophe. Titor's communications abruptly ended,
and some believe this is because he succeeded in his mission to stop a cataclysmic war from happening. However, others believe that he was silenced. Number 6 is Baron Trump. One fascinating time travel conspiracy that exists right now is that a book published in the 19th century contains information about Donald Trump's son, Baron. The book is called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey and was attributed to a 19th century lawyer named Ingersoll Lockwood, but many believe that it could only have been written by a time traveler from the future. The lead character in the book is called Baron, just like President Trump's son, though with a different spelling. In the book, Baron Trump is inspired by a man named Don, who is referred to as the Master of all Masters, who goes through a portal which leads to Russia and other places. Lockwood also wrote a pamphlet called The Last President, and many believe these are coded messages from a time traveler to those living in the current year. Number 5 is Rudolph Fentz. An urban legend tells the tale of a time traveler named Rudolph Fentz, but many believe that the legend is true and has since been covered up. As the story goes, it's 1951 and Rudolph, a man in his 20s, appears confused and walks out into New York traffic and is run down. Tragically, he dies, but witnesses are perplexed by his appearance. He's dressed in 19th century clothing. Several items are found in his possession, including old banknotes and a letter dated 1876. An investigating police officer uses Rudolph's possessions to identify him as a man who disappeared in 1876 in that area. Somehow, he had traveled through time. In 1951, a short story with the same plot was published. Conspiracy theorists believe that this was an attempt by authorities to discredit definitive proof that time travel is real. Number 4 is a time slip. One time travel conspiracy theory describes how an entire passenger jet vanished. The case relates to a flight during March of 1975. As the 727 aircraft approached Miami International Airport, it completely disappeared from all airports' radar. All attempts to contact the plane failed. Assuming the flight was lost, ground control crews were sent out to look for crash debris or to look to the sky to see if the plane was still approaching. 10 minutes later, the plane suddenly reappeared on the airport's radar and could be seen in the sky. However, when the plane landed, the passengers' watches were 10 minutes behind. Some believe that the plane went through what's known as a time slip and traveled 10 minutes into the future. Though federal teams investigated, the incident was kept quiet other than a short report in a local newspaper. Number 3 is Gray's Sports Almanac. There's a time travel conspiracy theory which is eerily close to a plot point in Back to the Future 2. In the film, Marty McFly travels to the distant future of 2015 and buys Gray's Sports Almanac so that he can go back to 1985 and place bets knowing the outcome. In 2017, however, a number of strange bets were placed on World Series games which won a mystery gambler $14 million. The run of placed bets was so unlikely that it's almost as if the gambler already knew the outcome. This bizarre turn of events has led many to theorize that the gambler either came from the future to make a quick buck or somehow gleaned information from future events before placing the bets. Number 2 is the Rendlesham Forest Incident. The Rendlesham Forest incident is a famous UFO encounter from 1980, but some believe that time travel may have also been involved. The events took place when Royal Air Force personnel investigated strange lights in Rendlesham Forest near an Air Force base in England. They encountered a strange unidentified craft
which had landed in the remote location. It was covered in unusual hieroglyphs and symbols. It then took off in the middle of the night. Some form of time dilation then occurred, and servicemen's watches were out of sync. Following this, one of the men, a Sergeant Jim Peniston, said that he received mental images of ones and zeros. These were later decoded by experts as a binary message, leading them to conclude that the craft was actually a time travel probe from the year 8100. It's believed that it was sent here to explore humanity's past. And number 1 is Ettore Majorana. A scientist named Ettore Majorana mysteriously vanished, and there's proof that he may have traveled into the future. Majorana was working on neutrino particles at the time. Some of his theories stated that some particles could travel through time, and many since have suggested that neutrinos could have been used in this manner. On March 27, 1938, Majorana was on a ship sailing from the Italian city of Palermo to Naples. When the ship docked, he had disappeared. Some thought that he had been killed or even kidnapped by people interested in his work, but a photo taken in 1955 proves that he was alive in Argentina. He looked the same age, and a witness claimed to have met Majorana, who told him that he'd made a huge scientific breakthrough. Many believe this breakthrough was the ability to travel through time itself. Number 10 is the 5th Norfolk Battalion. The 5th Norfolk Battalion was used during the First World War in an attempt to defeat Turkey. However, one day the battalion mysteriously vanished. They were fighting in the Galapagos campaign and attacked Turkish troops on August 12, 1915. Following this attack, the entire battalion, over 250 soldiers, were never heard from again. Now, usually in such situations, prisoners would have been taken, but the Turkish army had no knowledge of taking any prisoners from the 5th. All that's known is that during the attack, the Norfolk Battalion had become separated from the larger 163rd Brigade. Over 50 years later, 1965, a New Zealand sailor, along with 3 other veterans, had claimed that they had witnessed strange clouds hovering over the 5th Battalion, which seemed to consume them. To this day, there's no explanation for the mass disappearance, and it remains unsolved. Number 9 are the Lake Michigan 3. On July 2nd, 1966, 3 young friends vanished without a trace. Ann Miller and Renee Bruhl were only 19 at the time, and Patricia Blau, the 3rd missing woman, was only 21 years old. The day that they disappeared, they visited a beach on Lake Michigan. There, surrounded by the crowded sunbathers on a summer's day, the 3 women boarded a small motorboat, leaving their belongings behind. Unfortunately, they were never heard from again. No one knows what happened to the 3 friends, but many wonder about the unidentified man who was supposedly at the helm of the motorboat. The question is, was he their murderer? Disturbingly, some have speculated that 2 of the women were pregnant and were traveling to a known illegal abortion clinic, which operated from a houseboat on the lake, and then suddenly something went wrong. Was that the case, or were they murdered, or was it something else? To this day, nobody knows. Number 8 is Flight 19. While taking part in a routine training exercise, 5 large aircraft disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle. The disappearance occurred on December 5th, 1945, and included the loss of 14 airmen and crew. The bombers were designated Flight 19 for the duration of their 3-hour training mission. This was to take them on a triangular path from the Florida coast. Most of the aircrew involved had logged around 300 hours in flight time. But during the mission, for some unknown reason, the pilots reported their compasses were malfunctioning. That's when the flight commander radioed in that they were hundreds of miles off course. His last message was faint and seemed to be about preparing the planes for a crash landing. No evidence or wreckage has ever been found to explain the disappearance. Number 7 is the 9th Legion. The 9th Roman Legion was involved in one of the most famous mass disappearances of all time. Sometime around AD 120, the Legion disappeared from Roman documents. This is unusual as Romans kept meticulous records. Many have speculated about what exactly happened to the 9th, but we do know that it was operating in Britain at the time. One popular theory is that the Legion was sent to deal with the Celtic tribes of Scotland and disappeared while in the Scottish wilderness, most probably at the hands of the Picts or Celtic tribes who lived there. Then there are others that believe that they made a last stand in the English town of York. To this day, no evidence of the true fate of the 9th Legion has ever been found, and perhaps never will. Number 6 is the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. In another case coming out of Scotland was another bizarre mass disappearance that was directly connected to the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Located on one of the Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides, the lighthouse became the center of a mystery when in 1900 the lighthouse keepers staying there completely vanished. A relief vessel known as the Hesperus arrived at the Isles on December 26th, only to find that all 3 lighthouse keepers had disappeared. The only sign of trouble was a single overturned chair. No bodies were ever found, and theories range from one keeper killing the others and fleeing to foreign spies kidnapping them. The locals themselves believed that a phantom ship of ghosts had been seen on the sea and had taken the men for some unearthly purpose. Number 5 is Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste is the most famous mass disappearance at sea. The ship, an American merchant brigantine, was found deserted in the Atlantic Ocean on December 5th, 1872. Now, while the ship seemed a little disheveled, she was seaworthy, and when boarded, rescuers found that the entire crew was missing. The cargo was still intact, and the crew had left their belongings behind. Some of the ship's navigational equipment was missing, as well as a single lifeboat. This led many to speculate that the crew and her captain left the ship to avoid some unknown danger. Possible explanations include a sea quake which could have released poisonous gas from the seafloor, which the crew tried to escape. Another is that someone on the ship murdered everyone and then left the lifeboat. But if either of those were the case, wouldn't you think that there would be at least one body left behind? To this day, not a single explanation has been put forward that explains anything. Number 4 is the Lake Anjikuni settlement. In 1930, Joe LaBelle, a fur trapper in Canada, claimed that an entire Inuit village disappeared. The story goes that there was a small Inuit village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni, which was well known for the hunters in the area. LaBelle claimed that he had been welcomed there many times previously. However, in 1930, when he visited again, he discovered that the entire village had been abandoned. He found evidence that people left quickly, in the middle of even preparing food. Most chilling of all, he claimed to find that the village's sled dogs, critical for Inuit survival, had been left to starve to death, and that for some reason a body had been removed from a nearby grave. Now, some believe this story to be a hoax, while others maintain that something terrible came from the people of that small village, perhaps from the grave itself. Number 3 is Kuldara. Kuldara village in the Rajasthan district of India remains the location of a perplexing mass disappearance. Founded in the 13th century, the village thrived for centuries, but suddenly, during the 19th century, its people disappeared. Various tales exist about the mass disappearance of Kuldara, but what could make over 200 families leave their homes so suddenly? Some believe that an earthquake in the region destroyed much of the village, while others argue that the local water wells dried up. The village has developed a reputation for being haunted by the dead spirits of the villagers, who will not allow anyone to live there. Number 2 is Hur Verde. The Hur Verde mass disappearance is either a fascinating myth
or one of the most terrifying cases of mass disappearance ever recorded. Rio Verde was supposedly a Brazilian settlement home to 600 people, all of whom disappeared in 1923. When some travelers passed through the village at that time, they found it to be deserted. The police investigated these claims and could not find any of the villagers. However, what they did find was a gun and a message on a school blackboard which read, "There is no salvation." Many people believe that the events were covered up for some reason, and that the disappearance is a conspiracy. Interestingly, the origin of this story is just as mysterious as the story itself. And number 1 is the Roanoke Colony. The Roanoke Colony was the location for the most infamous mass disappearance of all time. It was the first attempt by England to form a permanent colony in North America. Founded in 1587, the settlement was home to 115 colonists. Soon after, the governor, John White, sailed back to England, leaving the colonists behind and promising to return within a year with supplies. When he finally made it back, the colony had vanished. All he found was the mysterious bones of a man and the word Croatoan written on a wooden post. To this day, nobody knows where this colony went, and it remains one of the greatest mysteries of disappearances of all time. Number 10 is Ray Gricar. On April 15, 2005, 59-year-old Center County, Pennsylvania District Attorney Ray Gricar disappeared under truly mysterious circumstances. His red Mini Cooper was found 80 kilometers away, parked near a bridge with his wallet and cell phone still inside of it. His laptop and hard drive were later found, destroyed in the Susquehanna River that ran under the same bridge. There were no signs of foul play, but given his career of putting away criminals, one theory is that he was killed as revenge or as part of a cover-up. Authorities went above and beyond to figure out what happened to the prosecutor, including consulting a psychic, digging up a grave, using NASA technology, and running down the over 300 reported sightings of Gricar, none of which turned up anything substantial. To this day, the case is still cold. Number 9 is Anjikuni Lake. In November of 1930, on a cold full moon night, fur trapper Joe LaBelle returned to the Anjikuni fishing village on Anjikuni Lake in Nunavut, Canada, looking to trade goods with the locals. However, upon his arrival, he immediately found himself standing in a ghost town. Every one of the villagers seemed to have disappeared, as if the town had been completely evacuated, though they'd left behind most of their belongings, including their prized rifles and kayaks. Some of the homes contained half-cooked food and several dead dogs. Adding to the mystery, all of the graves in the village's cemetery had been dug up and left empty. There were no signs of where the townsfolk or those that were dug up had gone, but nearby trappers reported seeing a mysterious blue light over the village that vanished into the darkness. Number 8 is the Yuba County 5. On February 24, 1978, 5 friends, Jack Madruga, Gary Mathias, Jackie Hewitt, Ted Weir, and William Sterling, got in a car and drove from Yuba City, California, headed for the city of Chico. The group of friends, who ranged in age from 24 to 32, had met while in a day treatment program for mentally handicapped adults and were traveling to attend a basketball game. However, sadly, the group never made it home. Jack's abandoned car was found off a mountain road in Plumas National Forest, though why it was so far off the route home is unknown. The remains of Jack, Jackie, William, and Ted were found in the forest under mysterious circumstances. However, Gary was never found. It's still a mystery to this day who or what led the men into the mountains, and what exactly happened to the 5th friend. Number 7 is the 9th Regiment. During the 2nd century, the Roman 9th Legion led battles across Europe and Africa before invading Britain. Around 109 AD, the 9th made their way to Caledonia, in modern-day Scotland, to battle for control of the land against a large group that was rebelling against them. Despite being well-trained and heavily armored, over 5,000 men marched north towards the rebellion and never returned. In fact, not only were they never heard from again, they were never found again. There isn't even a shred of evidence that shows that there was a battle fought in that particular area around that time. The warriors seemingly vanished from history in an instant. Some historians think that they disbanded or relocated, but no records have ever been found to conclusively say what happened to the 9th. Number 6 are the Beaumont siblings. On the morning of January 26, 1966, the 3 Beaumont siblings, 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Arna, and 4-year-old Grant, took the short trip to Glenelg Beach near Adelaide, Australia, to celebrate the official National Day of the country. After begging their mother Nancy to let them go, she relented and gave them bus fare. They were supposed to go for a quick swim and then be home that afternoon by 2 p.m. But sadly, the children never returned from the trip. Witnesses saw the children playing with a mysterious young man at the beach, but he was never identified. Since then, police have investigated thousands of leads and dug up land in a number of places, searching for them or even a clue as to what happened. However, no trace of the Beaumont children has ever been found. Number 5 is the Dalso case. In a single day, specifically July 29, 1965, 2 separate disappearances occurred in Gothenburg, Sweden, that would leave the city's residents shaken for a long time. The first involved shipyard workers Geir Carlson, Jan Olaf Dalso, and Kjell Åke Johansson, who drove out of town, but to where no one knows. The men had been involved in some petty crime, but weren't considered bad people. The second disappearance involved another man named Hubner Lundqvist. He was traveling through the area, and it's suspected that he may have actually been picked up by the 3 other men, only to suffer the same fate they did, whatever that may be. None of the 4 men were ever seen again, and the mystery is one of Sweden's most infamous cold cases. Number 4 is Rua Verde. In February 1923, a group of visitors to the Brazilian town of Rua Verde made a horrifying discovery. Though the small town was considered home to around 600 citizens, when the group arrived, they found that every single one of the townspeople had disappeared. All of their possessions had mysteriously been left behind, as if the entire town suddenly, without warning or preparation of any kind, just left. The only clues found were a gun that had been fired within 24 hours of the discovery, and a chilling note that was written on a chalkboard in the schoolhouse that read, "There is no salvation." One theory suggests that the villagers may have been trying to escape guerrilla warfare, but if so, why would they not take their possessions? Nobody from Rua Verde was ever seen again, or for that matter, even heard from again. Number 3 is Granger Taylor. On the night of November 29, 1980, 32-year-old Granger Taylor from Duncan, a city in Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, left a note for his parents at their farm outside of town. The note said that he was going to board a spaceship and fly off to explore the universe. It also relayed his promise that he would return in 42 months. That night, he and his bright pink Datsun pickup truck were last seen leaving a local diner. 42 months later, his promise to return was broken, and he remains missing. Taylor's friends called him a genius, but also said that he had become obsessed with aliens and how their technology would likely work. He even built a replica UFO out of satellite dishes, as well as scrap metal on the family's property, complete with a couch and stove inside. Granger believed that he was making contact with something out in space, and perhaps he did, as he was never heard from again. Number 2 is Glenn Miller. Alton Glenn Miller was one of the best-known big band leaders of the 1930s and 40s. During World War II, the famous American musician toured with his band to entertain the troops and improve morale. They were always a hit, that is, until December 15, 1944, when Miller was scheduled to fly from England to France for a show, but the small Royal Air Force plane that he was on never landed at its destination. The aircraft and all the people on board it vanished over the English Channel with no explanation as to how or why. Theories range from espionage, sabotage, enemy fire, and mechanical error, but with no evidence of a crash, his disappearance remains unexplained and is considered one of the most enduring mysteries of World War II. And number 1 is Maura Murray. Just after 7 p.m. on February 9, 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray was over 200 kilometers from her dorm at the University of Massachusetts Amherst when she crashed her car into a snowbank in Haverhill, New Hampshire. An eyewitness called 911 but told the operator and later the authorities that Maura didn't appear to be injured. When police arrived 10 minutes later, Maura was gone. Earlier that day, she had emailed her professors and her supervisor that there had been a death in the family before packing up, withdrawing $280 from an ATM, and purchasing $40 worth of alcohol, much of which was found spilled in the car. All of this indicated that she was running away, but where and exactly why, no one knows.